The north is cold and full of whispers.
Jon Snow rode through Riverrun's gates with Ghost at his side. The white direwolf drew immediate attention. Soldiers stopped mid-drill to stare. Servants paused in their work. The massive albino wolf moved in complete silence. No growl, no whine. Just the soft pad of enormous paws on stone. Robb was waiting in the courtyard. Grey Wind sat beside him, the grey direwolf rising as Jon dismounted. For a moment, the two wolves regarded each other. Then Grey Wind approached, touched noses with Ghost, and the tension broke. The brothers embraced. "Jon," Robb said. His voice cracked. "Gods, I thought. I didn't know if you'd actually come." "You asked," Jon said simply. "Your pack. I came." They stood there, holding each other while the entire courtyard watched. Jon looked different. Harder, leaner, more weathered than when he'd left for the wall. Robb looked older, carrying burdens that showed in his eyes. "There's so much to tell you," Robb said. "So much has happened since I wrote that letter." "The North is fractured," Jon finished. "I know. Your letter said as much." Lord Stark left. "Others are doubting. The revelation about my parentage split your support." "Not just mine," Robb said quietly. "Ours. The North's. Everything Father built." He pulled back, looked Jon in the eyes. "Are you ready for this?" "For what's coming?" "No," Jon admitted. "But I'm here anyway." Catelyn Stark emerged from the keep. She stopped when she saw Jon, her expression complex. Relief, fear, uncertainty. Something that might have been shame. She approached slowly. "Jon," she said. "Welcome to Riverrun, Lady Stark," Jon replied. He kept his voice neutral, respectful but distant. "I owe you an apology," Catelyn said. The words clearly cost her. "For 14 years, I treated you with cruelty, said things to you that no child should hear. I thought you were Ned's betrayal, his dishonor. I was wrong, and I'm sorry." Jon had imagined this moment 1,000 times, had imagined telling her exactly what her coldness had cost him, how her hatred had shaped his entire childhood, how "it should have been you" still echoed in his nightmares. But standing here, seeing the genuine remorse in her eyes, he found he didn't want revenge, didn't want to hurt her the way she'd hurt him. "I understand," Jon said. "You thought you were protecting your children. I can't fault you for that." "You're generous," Catelyn said. "More generous than I deserve." She hesitated. "Your father would be proud of the man you've become." "Our father," Jon corrected gently. "He was your husband. My uncle. But he raised me as his son. That makes him our father, doesn't it?" Catelyn's eyes filled with tears. She nodded, unable to speak. "Come," Robb said, breaking the moment. "The lords are assembled. They want to see you. Meet you. Judge whether you're more Stark or Targaryen." "And what do you think I am?" Jon asked. "My brother," Robb said firmly. "My cousin, my pack. Whatever blood runs in your veins doesn't change that." They walked into the great hall together, the two direwolves following. Every head turned, every conversation stopped. The assembled northern and river lords stared at Jon Snow, Jon Stark, Jon Targaryen, trying to reconcile the legend with the reality. Jon saw the great Jon, massive and intimidating, studying him with calculating eyes. Saw Magie Mormont, her expression skeptical. Saw Galbart Glover, Mark Piper, Tydos Blackwood, Jason Mallister. Saw Edmure Tully and the Blackfish watching from the high table. And sitting slightly apart from the others, wrapped in red robes that seemed to glow in the torchlight, was a woman Jon had never seen before. Red hair, red eyes, skin so pale it was almost translucent. She watched Jon with an intensity that made his skin crawl. "Who is that?" Jon whispered to Robb. "Melisandre of Ashai," Robb said quietly. "Stannis's Red Priestess. She came with him when he sailed to White Harbor. She's been saying things about you." "What things?" "That you're important. That her god shows her your face when she looks into the flames. That you have a role to play in what's coming." Robb's voice was uneasy. "Stannis isn't happy about it." Jon looked at the red woman again. She smiled at him. It was not a comforting expression. Robb led Jon to the front of the hall and turned to address the assembled lords. "My lords, I present Jon Snow, legitimized by my father as Jon Stark, son of Lyanna Stark and—" He paused, then continued firmly, and Rhaegar Targaryen. The hall erupted, not in cheers, in angry mutters and shocked exclamations. Men who had heard rumors now faced the reality, a Targaryen prince standing before them in the flesh. Silence! The great Jon's voice cut through the noise. The boy's here. Let him speak. Let us hear what he has to say before we judge him. All eyes turned to Jon. He felt the weight of their expectations, their hatred, their fear, their hope, everything resting on what he said next. He thought of his father, Ned Stark, who had raised him, who had taught him honor and duty and keeping promises, who had lived with dishonor for 14 years to protect him. "My lords," Jon began. His voice was steady despite his fear. "I know what you're thinking. You're looking at me and seeing a Targaryen, seeing the Mad King's grandson, seeing Rhaegar's son, seeing everything the North fought against during the rebellion." He paused, meeting their eyes. "And you're right. That blood runs in my veins. I can't change that. Can't deny it. But I also have Lyanna Stark's blood. Northern blood. The blood of the first men. The blood of Winterfell. Blood doesn't make you who you are," Mage Mormon said sharply. "Actions do. What have you done that makes you worthy of our trust?" "I served at the wall," Jon said. "Took vows to defend the realm. Fought the dead, actual dead men walking, risen by the others. Saved Lord Commander Mormont's life and burned my hand doing it." He held up his scarred right hand. "I chose duty over desire. Chose service over comfort. Chose to honor vows that cost me everything I wanted." "You broke those vows," someone called from the back. "You deserted the watch to come here." "I was released from my vows," Jon corrected. "Lord Commander Mormont granted me dispensation because the realm's need was greater than the watch's. I didn't desert. I left with honor, with permission, with the blessing of the men I served beside." "Why?" the great Jon demanded. "Why leave the wall? Why come south? What do you want, boy?" "I want to help my family," Jon said. "I want to stop this war before it destroys the North. I want to prepare the realm for what's coming, and something is coming, my lords. The others are real. The dead walk. Winter is coming, and when it arrives, we need to be united, not tearing ourselves apart over crowns and thrones." "Pretty words," Galbart Glover said, "but words are wind. You speak of unity, while your very existence divides us. Half the North won't follow a Targaryen. Half the realm would rather die than see a dragon on the throne again. How does your presence help anything?" "I'm not claiming the throne," Jon said. "Not now. Not until this war is won and the realm is stable. Robb is king in the North. I'm here to support him, not supplant him. I'm here to fight the Lannisters, rescue the Stark girls, and defend the North. That's all. For now," Magi Mormont said. "But what about later? What about when the Lannisters are defeated? What about when you decide you want the Iron Throne after all?" "Then I'll convene a great council," Jon said. "Let the lords of the realm decide who should rule. If they choose me, I'll accept it. If they choose someone else, I'll support that decision and return to the wall. I'm not here to seize power. I'm here to serve." The great Jon stood, walked forward until he was face to face with Jon, studied him with those calculating eyes. "You look like a Stark," the great Jon said. "Talk like a Stark. But how do we know you won't become like your grandfather? Like the Mad King? Targaryen madness runs in families, boy. It's in your blood. So is Stark honor," Jon replied. "So is my father's teaching. So is everything Ned Stark believed in. I can't promise I won't make mistakes. Can't promise I'll always choose right. But I can promise I'll try. That I'll follow the example my father set. That I'll put duty before desire and honor before ambition." "Your father," the great Jon repeated. "Ned Stark." "Yes," Jon said firmly. "The man who raised me, who taught me, who showed me what it means to be a Stark. That's who I am. Not Rhaegar, not Aerys. Ned Stark's son in every way that matters." The great Jon was silent for a long moment. Then he turned to address the hall. "I've known Ned Stark for 30 years. Fought beside him, bled beside him. And I'm telling you, this boy sounds like Ned, looks like Ned, has Ned's honor written all over his face. If Ned thought he was worth protecting, worth legitimizing, worth acknowledging, then I'm willing to give him a chance." He looked back at Jon. "But just a chance. Understand, you'll need to prove yourself. Prove you're more Stark than Targaryen. Prove you're worth the divisions you're causing. Can you do that? I'll try, Jon said. Then I'll wait and see, the great Jon said. He returned to his seat. House Umber stands with House Stark, and if Lord Robb says you're Stark, until you prove otherwise. It wasn't enthusiastic support, but it was something, a foundation to build on. Other lords murmured agreement. Not all of them. Maegor Mormont still looked skeptical. Galbart Glover, unconvinced. But enough lords were willing to wait, to give Jon a chance to prove himself. Enough to keep Robb's coalition from fracturing completely. The council continued for another hour. Practical matters were discussed. Supplies, strategy, intelligence about Lannister movements. Jon mostly listened, learning the situation, understanding the forces arrayed against them. When it finally ended and lords dispersed, Robb pulled Jon aside. That went better than I expected. They're not convinced, Jon said. Just willing to wait before making a final judgment. I'll take it, Robb said. After Karstark left, I thought the whole North might follow. But the great Jon's support matters. Other houses will follow his lead. What about Stannis? Jon asked. Where is he? At White Harbor, with Manderly, Robb said. Gathering supplies for his army. He was supposed to come to River Run, but after Melisandre started seeing you in her flames, he delayed. I think he's afraid of what it means. That his Red Priestess is wrong about him being Azor Ahai, Jon said. That maybe I'm the prince that was promised instead. Do you believe that? Robb asked. The prophecy? The Red God? Any of it? I don't know what I believe, Jon admitted. I've seen the dead walk. I've felt something stirring beyond the wall. Whether that makes me a prophesied prince, or just a man in the wrong place at the wrong time, I can't say. Melisandre wants to meet you, Robb said. Formally. She's been asking since your arrival was announced. I don't trust her, Jon said. Something about her feels wrong. Dangerous. She is dangerous, Robb agreed. She birthed shadow creatures that killed Renly Baratheon and some of his guards. Stannis doesn't talk about it, but enough people saw it happen that the story spread. She has power, Jon. Real power, and she thinks you're important. When does she want to meet? Tonight. After dinner. In private. Robb's expression was troubled. I can be there if you want. As protection. No, Jon said. If she wants to talk, I'll talk. Maybe I can learn something useful. But keep Grey Wind nearby. Just in case. Ghost will be with you, Robb pointed out. Ghost is silent, Jon said. If something goes wrong, he can't howl for help. But Grey Wind can. Keep him close enough to hear if there's trouble. Done, Robb promised. They separated to their duties. Jon was given chambers in River Run's guest tower, modest rooms but private. Ghost immediately claimed a corner and settled down to rest. Jon sat on the bed and tried to process everything. He was here, in River Run, surrounded by northern lords who half believed he was a dragon prince and half believed he was a legitimate Stark. With a Red Priestess who saw him in flames and thought he was prophesied to save the world. What have I gotten myself into? Jon wondered. But he knew the answer. He'd gotten himself into duty, into family, into pack, into everything his father, his uncle had taught him mattered more than safety or comfort or personal desire. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Enter, Jon called. Catelyn Stark came in. She looked uncertain, like she wasn't sure she had the right to be there. I wanted to talk, she said, privately. If you'll permit it. Of course, Lady Stark. Catelyn, she corrected. Your family, Jon. You've always been family, even when I tried to pretend otherwise. Please, call me Catelyn, Jon nodded. Catelyn. She sat in the room's single chair. I've been thinking about Ned, about everything he sacrificed to protect you. He let me hate him for something he never did. Let me think he'd betrayed me. All to keep you safe. I know, Jon said quietly. Do you resent him for it? Catelyn asked. For making you live as a bastard? For making you suffer my coldness? For not telling you the truth? Until the very end? Jon considered the question. Sometimes, when I was young, I resented him for not loving my mother enough to marry her, for not caring enough to claim me properly. But now I understand. He did what he thought was right. What honor demanded, and he paid a terrible price for it. We all paid a price, Catelyn said. You, me, Ned, even Robb, who's now dealing with the consequences of that secret coming out. She looked at Jon. But I want you to know, I don't blame you. For any of it. You didn't choose your parents. Didn't choose to be born. You're not responsible for the divisions your existence created. Then who is responsible? Jon asked. The world, Catelyn said. The realm that can't see past blood to the person beneath. The lords who hate Targaryens more than they love the North. The system that values lineage over character. She paused. And me. I'm responsible for making your childhood harder than it needed to be. For that, I'm truly sorry. I forgive you, Jon said. And he meant it. Holding on to that resentment would poison him, would make him bitter, would dishonor everything Ned Stark had taught him about mercy and moving forward. Thank you, Catelyn said. She stood. One more thing. Robb trusts you completely. He's willing to stake everything, his crown, his kingdom, his life, on you being worthy of that trust. Please, don't prove him wrong. He's lost too much already. I won't, Jon promised. Robb is my brother, my pack. I would die before betraying him. Catelyn nodded and left. Jon sat alone with Ghost and his thoughts until dinner was called. The evening meal was tense. Jon sat at the high table beside Robb, with Catelyn on Robb's other side. The Great Jon commanded attention at one end of the hall, telling loud stories about past battles. Edmure Tully attempted to keep order. The Blackfish watched everything with those sharp eyes that missed nothing, and Melisandre sat apart from everyone, eating nothing, drinking nothing, just watching Jon with those unnerving red eyes. After the meal ended and lords began dispersing, Melisandre approached. Up close, she was even more unsettling. Too perfect, too symmetrical, too other. Jon Snow, she said. Her voice was melodious, almost hypnotic. Or should I say Jon Stark? Or perhaps something else entirely. Jon is fine, he said carefully. I am Melisandre of Ashai, priestess of R'hllor, the Lord of Light, and I have been waiting to meet you, so I've been told. Why? Because the Lord shows me your face when I look into the flames. When I pray for glimpses of Azor Ahai, I see only snow. She smiled. Snow. Capitalized. Specific. You, Jon Snow. I don't believe in your God, Jon said bluntly. Belief is irrelevant, Melisandre replied. The Lord of Light works through you whether you acknowledge him or not. I have seen it. You stand against the darkness. You hold back the cold. You are ice and fire made flesh. I'm just a man, Jon said. A bastard who joined the Night's Watch. Nothing special. You are the son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark, Melisandre said. Dragon and wolf. Fire and ice, the song incarnate. And you have a role to play in the war to come. What war? The war that matters, Melisandre said. The war against the great other. Against the darkness that gathers beyond your wall. Against the cold that would consume all life. Her eyes gleamed. You've seen them, haven't you? The dead that walk. The others. The ancient enemy. Jon's blood ran cold. How do you know about that? I see many things in my fires, Melisandre said. I see a boy who fought the dead and burned his hand doing it. I see a warrior who dreams of fighting with a burning sword. I see a king who doesn't want to be king but will become one anyway because duty demands it. I told Robb I'm not claiming the throne, Jon said. Not now, Melisandre agreed. But you will. When the time comes, when the realm needs you, when the only choice is between you and darkness. She leaned closer. The Lord has shown me your path, Jon Snow. I cannot see all of it, cannot predict every turn. But I know you are important, essential. The realm's last hope against the night. What about Stannis? Jon asked. You've been telling him he's Azor Ahai, that he's the chosen one. Was that a lie? Not a lie, Melisandre said. A misinterpretation. I saw a king. Saw him fighting the darkness. Assumed it was Stannis because he was the king I served. But now I understand. The visions were never about Stannis. They were about you. Does Stannis know? Jon asked. He suspects, Melisandre admitted. Why do you think he remains at White Harbor instead of coming here? He's afraid. Afraid I'll abandon him for you. Afraid he'll lose the one person who believes in his claim. And will you? Abandon him. Melisandre was silent for a moment. My loyalty is to R'hllor and his purpose. If that purpose is better served by you than by Stannis, then yes, I will transfer my allegiance. but I'm not certain yet. I need to observe you, understand you, determine if you truly are the prince that was promised. How do you plan to do that? By staying close, Melisandre said. By watching, by interpreting what the flames show me, and perhaps by testing you when the time comes. I don't trust you, Jon said flatly. Good, Melisandre replied. Trust is earned, not given. I don't trust you either, Jon Snow, but I believe you're important, and I believe we're meant to work together, whether we like each other or not. She turned and walked away, her red robes swirling. Jon watched her go, feeling deeply unsettled. Ghost pressed against his leg. Jon scratched behind the direwolf's ears, taking comfort in the familiar gesture. I don't like this, Jon muttered to Ghost. Don't like her. Don't like her prophecies. Don't like being told I'm some chosen hero destined to save the world. Ghost said nothing, just pressed closer. Robb appeared from a side corridor. How did it go? She thinks I'm Azor Ahai, Jon said. Thinks her god chose me to fight the darkness, and she's willing to abandon Stannis if she becomes convinced I'm the real chosen one. 7 hells, Robb muttered. That's going to make Stannis even more difficult to deal with. Where does he stand? Jon asked. Politically? Militarily? He has maybe 20,000 men now, Robb said. Most of Renly's cavalry joined him after Renly died. But he lost the Battle of the Blackwater, lost most of his fleet. He's regrouping at White Harbor with Manderly's support, but he's not strong enough to threaten King's Landing again. Not alone. And us? We have maybe 15,000, Robb said. Lost Karstark's forces. Lost some other houses who quietly withdrew after your parentage was revealed. The Riverlands adds another 10,000 under Edmure and the Blackfish, so 25,000 total. Against how many Lannisters? Tywin commands maybe 35,000, Robb said. But he's divided. Some at Harrenhal, some besieging various river castles, some garrisoning the Westerlands. And now he's allied with the Tyrells. Mace Tyrell can field 80,000 men if he fully commits. That's over 100,000 potential enemies. We're outnumbered 5-1, Jon observed. We've won against worse odds, Robb said. The Whispering Wood, Oxcross. We're faster, more mobile, better at unconventional tactics. And we have the direwolves. As if summoned, Grey Wind padded into view. The grey direwolf was massive, as large as a small horse with teeth that could rip a man's arm from its socket. He approached Ghost, and the 2 wolves touched noses again. They're bigger than I remember, Jon said. They've grown, Robb confirmed. Grey Wind has killed too many men to fear them now. He gets restless in halls, snaps at people. I shouldn't have brought him into battle so young. But gods, Jon, he's been invaluable. At Oxacross we used him to panic the Lannister horses, cut their lines holding the destriers, let Grey Wind's scent drive them mad. They trampled their own camp before we even attacked. Ghost is silent, Jon said. Never makes a sound. He's perfect for stealth operations, scouting, ambush. We should use that, Robb said. His eyes gleamed with tactical interest. Combined operations. Grey Wind for terror and chaos. Ghost for silent killing and reconnaissance. The Lannisters won't know what hit them. First, we need a plan, Jon said. What's our strategic goal? What are we actually trying to accomplish? Rescue my sisters, Robb said immediately. Sansa and Arya are still prisoners in King's Landing. Everything else is secondary to getting them back. How do we do that when the Lannisters control the city? We use Jaime, Robb said. We have the Kingslayer. We trade him for the girls. Tywin won't want his precious son and heir executed. Will Tywin negotiate? Jon asked skeptically. He has to, Robb said. Jaime is the only heir he has left. Cersei's a woman. She can't inherit Casterly Rock under Westerland's law. Tyrion is a dwarf that Tywin hates. If Jaime dies, House Lannister dies with him. Tywin will deal. And if he doesn't, Robb's face hardened. Then we make him. We raid the Westerlands. Burn his villages. Kill his peasants. Make it so expensive to refuse that he has no choice but to trade. Jon heard the ruthlessness in Robb's voice and understood. War had changed his brother. Made him harder, more willing to do terrible things for family. We're all changing, Jon thought. The war is making monsters of us all. But he also understood the necessity. Sansa and Arya were innocents. Children caught in a war they didn't start. If burning Lannister villages saved them, then that was the price that had to be paid. "What do you need from me?" Jon asked. "I need you to be what you are," Robb said. "A Stark, a warrior, someone I can trust absolutely. The North is fractured, Jon. Some houses support me, some are neutral. Some are actively plotting against me. I'm certain of it, though I can't prove it yet. I need people I can rely on. People who won't betray me, your pack. That's worth more than armies." "I won't betray you," Jon promised. "Whatever happens, whatever the lords decide about my claim. You're my brother. That comes first." "I know," Robb said. He gripped Jon's shoulder. "I've always known. That's why I wrote to you. That's why I'm staking everything on you being here. Because if I can't trust my own brother, who can I trust?" They stood together in the corridor, two young men carrying impossible burdens, and found strength in each other's presence. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new dangers, new impossible choices, but tonight they were pack, and the pack survived. The next morning brought news from White Harbor. A raven arrived bearing Stannis Baratheon's seal. Robb read it in his solar, with Jon, Catelyn, Edmure, and the Blackfish present. "Stannis is coming," Robb said. "He'll be here within a week with his full host, 20,000 men." "Why now?" Catelyn asked. "He's been delaying for weeks. Because Melisandre is here," Jon said, "and he knows she's been seeing me in her flames. He's coming to confront us, to make sure his Red Priestess stays loyal to him, or to kill you," the Blackfish said bluntly. "If Stannis thinks you're a threat to his claim, he might decide the simplest solution is your death." "He can try," Robb said. Grey Wind growled, sensing his master's mood. "But Jon is under my protection. Under the North's protection. If Stannis wants him dead, he'll have to go through me first." "That's exactly what we're trying to avoid," Catelyn said. "Robb, Stannis has 20,000 men. We have 25,000. If we fight each other, the Lannisters win. We need to find a way to work together." "How?" Robb demanded. "Stannis claims the throne. Jon has a claim that's arguably better. Melisandre is transferring her loyalty. Stannis is going to see Jon as a rival at best, a usurper at worst. Then we make it clear Jon isn't claiming anything yet," Edmure suggested. "We present him as Jon Stark, your cousin, fighting for the North. Not as Jon Targaryen, potential king." "Keep the Targaryen part quiet. Too late for that," the Blackfish said. "Half the camp already knows. Soldiers talk. Servants gossip. By now, every person within 50 miles knows there's a Targaryen at River Run. We can't put that particular cat back in the bag." "Then we control the narrative," Jon said. "We make it clear I'm here to support Robb, not to claim the throne. That I'm fighting for family, not power. That Stannis and I aren't rivals. We're allies against the Lannisters." "Stannis doesn't do allies," Catelyn said. "He does subordinates. If you're not swearing fealty to him, he considers you an enemy." "Then we have a problem," Jon said. "Because I'm not swearing fealty to Stannis. I'm here for Robb, for the North. Not for a southern king I've never met." "Seven hells," Robb muttered. "This is going to be a disaster." "Not necessarily," the Blackfish said. He moved to the map table, studying the positions. "Stannis wants the Iron Throne. We want to rescue the Stark girls and defend the North. The Lannisters are our common enemy. As long as we focus on that, on fighting Tywin, not each other, we can maintain a working relationship. Until the Lannisters are defeated," Catelyn said. "Then what? When there's no common enemy to unite us?" "Then we convene the Great Council," Jon promised. Robb said, "Let the lords decide who should rule. Stannis can make his case. Jon can make his, and the realm chooses." "Stannis will never accept that," Edmure said. "He believes the throne is his by right. He's not going to submit to a vote. Then he'll lose," Robb said flatly. "Because I control the North. The Riverlands are allied with us. That's a significant portion of the realm. If Stannis wants to fight us for the throne after we've defeated the Lannisters together, he'll lose, and he's smart enough to know it." "We hope," the Blackfish muttered. The discussion continued for another hour, planning how to receive Stannis, what to say, how to present Jon. By the end, they had a fragile strategy: emphasize the common enemy, downplay the succession question, and hope Stannis was pragmatic enough to accept temporary alliance. It wasn't a great plan, but it was the only plan they had. That afternoon, Jon found himself in the training yard with a practice sword. working through forms he'd learned from Ser Roderick Cassell years ago. His burned hand was stiff. He had to flex it regularly to keep it functional. The injury had cost him speed and dexterity, but he'd learned to compensate. "You fight well." Jon turned. A northern lord he didn't recognize stood watching. Older man, weathered face, calculating eyes. "Thank you," Jon said. "I'm Roose Bolton," the man said. "Lord of the Dreadfort. We haven't been formally introduced." Jon knew the name. House Bolton had a dark reputation. The flayed man's sigil, the old custom of flaying enemies alive. But they were Stark bannermen, had fought for Robb at the Green Fork. "Lord Bolton," Jon said carefully. "I've heard of you." "Nothing good, I imagine," Roose said. His voice was soft, almost gentle. It made him more unsettling, not less. "My house has a reputation. We've earned it over centuries. But we're loyal to House Stark, have been for generations." "I'm glad to hear it," Jon said. "Are you?" Roose asked. "Or are you wondering if I'm plotting against you? Against Robb? Against the North?" "I'm wondering why you're telling me this," Jon said honestly. "Because I wanted to meet the boy who's causing so much trouble," Roose replied. "The Targaryen prince who isn't claiming the throne. The bastard who isn't a bastard. The Stark who isn't quite a Stark." He smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "You're an interesting puzzle, Jon Snow." "I'm not a puzzle," Jon said. "Just a man trying to do his duty." "Duty to whom?" Roose asked. "To Robb? To the North? To the Targaryen legacy? To the Night's Watch you abandoned?" "I didn't abandon the watch," Jon said, his voice hardening. "I was released from my vows." "A convenient distinction," Roose observed. "But semantics aside, you're here now, fighting for the North, for Robb. And I find myself wondering, what happens when Robb asks you to do something that conflicts with your Targaryen blood? What happens when being a Stark and being a Targaryen pull you in different directions?" "Then I choose being a Stark," Jon said without hesitation. "I was raised by Ned Stark. I'm Pack. That's all that matters. We'll see." Roose said, "War has a way of revealing who people truly are. Under pressure, under threat, when everything is on the line." He turned to leave, then paused. "One more thing. My bastard son is currently Castellan of the Dreadfort. If you ever need anything from the Northeast, let me know. House Bolton stands ready to serve." He walked away, leaving Jon deeply unsettled. There was something wrong about Roose Bolton, something off. Jon couldn't articulate it, but his instincts, honed by months at the wall, sharpened by fighting the dead, screamed danger. He would have to watch Lord Bolton carefully, and hope his suspicions were wrong. Because if Roose Bolton was plotting something, if he was hiding treachery behind that soft voice and those cold eyes, then the North had bigger problems than Lannister armies. It had enemies within its own ranks, and that was the most dangerous kind of enemy there was. The king who broods Stannis Baratheon arrived at Riverrun 6 days later with an army at his back. 20,000 men marched in disciplined columns, mostly cavalry that had once served Renly, now bearing Stannis's crowned stag instead of Renly's crowned stag with the green bar. The contrast was stark. Where Renly's host had been a festival of bright banners and shining armor, Stannis's army was grimly practical, functional, built for war, not pageantry. Robb assembled his bannermen to receive the king. Jon stood beside him, with Grey Wind and Ghost flanking them. The two direwolves drew immediate attention from Stannis's forces. Soldiers who had never seen such beasts pointed and whispered. Stannis himself rode at the column's head. He was a hard man, all sharp angles and clenched jaw. His face showed no warmth, no humor, nothing except iron determination. He wore armor of gray steel with minimal decoration. No crown, no ceremony, just a warrior who happened to be a king. Beside him rode a handful of knights, and behind them, on a black horse that seemed to drink the light, rode Melisandre in her red robes. The column halted. Stannis dismounted and approached. His eyes swept over the assembled northerners, dismissed most of them, and fixed on Robb. "Lord Robb," Stannis said. His voice was hard as stone. "You call yourself king in the north. An interesting presumption." "Your Grace," Robb replied carefully. "The north chose me. I didn't seek the crown." "No one seeks crowns," Stannis said. "They either earn them or steal them. Which did you do?" The tension ratcheted instantly. Northern lords bristled at the insult. Hands moved toward swords. Gray wind growled, a low rumble that made Stannis' horse shift nervously. I earned it, Robb said. His voice was level but firm. By defeating Jaime Lannister at the Whispering Wood. By breaking the siege of River Run. By winning every battle I've fought. The Northern Lords crowned me because I proved worthy, not because I demanded it. Interesting, Stannis said. You win a few battles against Lannisters, and suddenly you're a king. I held Storm's End under siege for a year, eating rats and boot leather, while Robert played at being king. I smashed the Iron Fleet at Fair Isle. I've served the realm my entire life. Yet when Robert died, the crown went to his bastard son, not to me. Where is the justice in that? There is no justice, Robb said. Only power. You taught me that when you let my father die in King's Landing, when you failed to support him against the Lannisters, when you stayed on Dragonstone gathering your strength while Ned Stark's head was mounted on a spike. Stannis' jaw clenched. Your father was a fool. An honorable fool, but a fool nonetheless. He trusted the Lannisters, trusted Littlefinger, trusted that truth and justice would prevail. And it got him killed. I don't make those mistakes. No, Robb agreed. You just make different ones. Like burning people alive for your red god. Like letting a shadow creature murder your brother. Like believing prophecies instead of dealing with reality. That's enough, Catelyn said, stepping forward. Your Grace, Lord Robb, this serves no purpose. We have common enemies, common goals. Let's focus on those instead of trading insults. Stannis turned his cold gaze on her. Lady Catelyn, your husband released Jaime Lannister against explicit orders. That's treason. I should have you arrested. My husband is dead, Catelyn said, murdered by the Lannisters you claim to oppose. If you want justice for that crime, we're allies. If you want to prosecute past grievances, we're enemies. Choose. Stannis was silent for a long moment. Then his eyes moved past Robb, past Catelyn, and fixed on Jon. You, Stannis said. Jon Snow. Or is it Jon Stark now? Or should I call you Jon Targaryen? Jon is fine, Your Grace, Jon said. He kept his voice respectful, but not submissive. You broke your vows to the Night's Watch, Stannis said. Deserted your post. Abandoned your brothers. That's punishable by death. I was released from my vows by Lord Commander Mormont, Jon said. I have his written dispensation. I didn't desert. I left with honor. Convenient, Stannis said. And now you're here. At Riverrun. With a Targaryen claim to my throne. Planning to usurp me the way your grandfather tried to burn the realm. I'm not claiming anything, Jon said firmly. I'm here to support Robb. To fight the Lannisters. To help rescue my cousins from King's Landing. That's all. Is it? Stannis' eyes were chips of dirty ice. Melisandre seems to think otherwise. She's been seeing your face in her flames, calling you important, suggesting you might be this prince that was promised. Do you know what that means to me? Do you understand what it's like to have the one person who believes in you suddenly questioning whether you're even the right king? Jon heard the raw pain beneath the anger. Stannis wasn't just afraid of losing his claim. He was afraid of being irrelevant, of discovering that his entire life, all his service, all his sacrifice, all his belief in justice and right, meant nothing because some prophecy said a bastard boy was more important. I don't believe in prophecies, Jon said. I believe in doing what's right, protecting family, keeping vows. Your priestess can see whatever she wants in her flames. It doesn't change who I am or what I'm here to do. And what are you here to do? Stannis demanded. Fight beside my brother, Jon said. Defend the North. Prepare for what's coming beyond the wall. The others are real, Your Grace. The dead walk. Winter is coming, and when it arrives, prophecies won't matter. Only whether we're ready. Stannis studied him for a long moment. You've seen them. The others. I've fought them, Jon said. Killed a white with fire, burned my hand doing it. He held up his scarred right hand. They're real. They're coming. And if we spend all our time fighting each other over crowns and thrones, we'll all die when they arrive. Then we should work together, Stannis said. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a command. You, me, Lord Robb, united against the Lannisters. United against the real threat. I agree, Robb said. Common cause. Common enemy. We can argue about crowns after we've won. No, Stannis said flatly. We clarify the hierarchy now. I am the rightful king. You are rebel lords. If we're to work together, it will be under my command. You will acknowledge my authority. Swear fealty. Submit to my rule. That's not going to happen, Robb said. His voice was steel. The North chose me. I won't unmake that choice because you demand it. Then we're at an impasse, Stannis said. Not necessarily, the Blackfish interrupted. He had been watching from the side, and now he stepped forward. Your Grace, Lord Robb. You're both missing the obvious solution. You don't need to resolve the succession question now. You need to defeat the Lannisters first. After that's done, you convene a great council. Let the lords of the realm decide who should rule. Both of you make your cases. The realm chooses. I don't submit to votes, Stannis said. The throne is mine by right. I don't need lords to confirm what law already establishes. Then you'll fight alone, Robb said. Because I'm not bending the knee to you. The North is independent. We've declared it. We mean it. If you want our help against the Lannisters, it will be as allies, not as subjects. Stannis' jaw worked. Jon could see the king wrestling with pragmatism versus principle. Stannis believed absolutely in his right to rule, believed that justice and law supported his claim. Asking him to compromise that belief was like asking him to stop breathing. But he was also smart enough to understand numbers. His 20,000 men couldn't take King's Landing alone. He'd already proven that at the Blackwater. He needed allies. Needed the North's strength. Needed the Riverland's support. Temporary alliance, Stannis said finally. We fight the Lannisters together. As equals, not as king and subject. But when the war is won, we settle the succession question properly. With a great council if necessary. Agreed? Agreed, Robb said. And him? Stannis pointed at Jon. What role does the Targaryen boy play? Jon fights with us, Robb said. As my cousin. As a Stark. Not as a claimant. His Targaryen blood is irrelevant. Nothing about Targaryen blood is irrelevant, Stannis said. But I'll accept it for now. Jon Snow remains with you. Under your authority. If he starts claiming the throne, making pronouncements, gathering supporters, we have a problem. A big problem. Understood. Understood, Jon said. Stannis nodded curtly. Then we have a temporary alliance. My army will camp outside Riverrun. We'll coordinate strategy, plan the next moves, and we'll pray to whatever gods listen that we can actually trust each other long enough to win this war. He turned and walked back to his horse. His commanders followed, leaving the Northerners standing in uncertain silence. That went better than I expected, Edmure said. That went terribly, Catelyn countered. He's angry. Suspicious. One wrong move and he'll turn on us. Stannis Baratheon with a grievance is like a mastiff with a bone, the Blackfish observed. He gnaws it down to splinters. And right now his grievance is that his Red Priestess is doubting him. That's going to fester. Then we make sure it doesn't explode, Robb said. We work with him. Prove we're trustworthy. Show him that we're better as allies than enemies. And Melisandre? Jon asked. She's going to keep seeing me in her flames. Keep telling Stannis I'm important. That's going to drive him mad. Let it, Robb said. As long as Stannis is focused on you as a rival, he's not focused on me as a rebel king who needs crushing. Let him worry about prophecies and chosen ones. We'll focus on actually winning battles. They dispersed to their duties. Jon found himself summoned to the council chamber an hour later, where Robb had assembled his key commanders to plan strategy. Present were Robb, the Greatjon, Edmure, the Blackfish, Roose Bolton, Mage Mormont, and Jon. Maps covered the table, showing the Riverlands, the Westerlands, and King's Landing. All right, Robb said. Stannis has 20,000 men. We have 25,000. That's 45,000 total. The Lannisters have maybe 35,000 divided between Tywin at Harrenhal and various garrisons. But they're allied with the Tyrells now. Mace Tyrell can field 80,000 if he fully commits. So we're still outnumbered, the Greatjon said. 3-2 at best. Worse if the Tyrells actually march. The Tyrells are slow, the Blackfish said. Mace is cautious, ponderous. He won't commit his full strength until he's certain which side is winning. That gives us time. Time for what? Mage Mormont asked. To hurt the Lannisters badly enough that the Tyrells hesitate, Robb said. To make Tywin look weak, vulnerable. If we can bloody the Lannisters convincingly, the Tyrells might decide neutrality is safer than alliance. How do we bloody an army of 35,000 with our 45,000 when they're dug in at Harrenhal? Roose Bolton asked. His soft voice cut through the discussion. Harrenhal is the largest castle in Westeros. Tywin can sit there indefinitely, supplied by the Crown lands. And we can't touch him. We don't attack Harrenhal, Robb said. We attack his supply lines, his foraging parties, his outlying garrisons. We make it so expensive to hold the riverlands that he has to either withdraw or come out to fight us. And when he comes out to fight, the Great Jon asked, we're still outnumbered. We choose the battlefield, Robb said. Force him to fight where our advantages matter, near rivers where we can use the terrain, in forests where his numbers are less important. We did it at the Whispering Wood. We can do it again. The Whispering Wood worked because we had surprise, the Blackfish pointed out. Jaime didn't know we were there. Tywin knows we're here. He knows we're planning something. He won't walk into an obvious trap. Then we make it a non-obvious trap, Jon said. Everyone turned to look at him. We don't ambush him. We make him think he's ambushing us. We expose a vulnerable target. Make him think he can win easily. Then we spring the real trap. What vulnerable target? Edmure asked. Me, Jon said. I'm a Targaryen prince. Tywin would give a lot to capture me. Use me as a hostage. Kill me publicly to curry favor with Robert's supporters. If I lead a small force, say 2,000 men, and make it look like I'm raiding the Westerlands, Tywin might send a force to intercept me. Something large enough to guarantee victory. Maybe 10,000 men, and we'd have the other 43,000 waiting to trap them, Robb said slowly. Catch them between your force and the main army. It's risky, Roose said. If Tywin sends more than 10,000, if he sees through the deception, Jon's force gets destroyed, and we lose our supposed Targaryen prince in the first real engagement. I'm not that valuable, Jon said. And the risk is worth it if we can eliminate a third of Tywin's army. You are that valuable, Robb corrected. To me. To the north. I'm not using you as bait unless I'm certain we can protect you. Then we make certain, Jon said. We plan carefully. Use scouts. Have the direwolves range ahead to detect enemy movements. Grey Wind can sense ambushes. Ghost can scout silently. Between them, we'd have warning of any traps. The wolves, the Great Jon mused. At Oxacross, Grey Wind panicked the horses. What if we used both wolves together? Ghost to scout, Grey Wind to cause chaos. They're big as horses themselves now. Vicious. Men who've never seen direwolves would panic. It could work, the Blackfish admitted. Unconventional tactics, using assets the Lannisters don't expect. But it requires perfect coordination and a lot of luck. We've had luck so far, Robb said. Every battle we've fought, we've won. I'm not saying we're invincible, but we've proven we can beat the Lannisters when we're smart about it. What about Stannis? Mage asked. Does he participate in this plan, or do we keep him in reserve? We use him as the hammer, Robb said. My force and Jon's force are the anvil. We trap the Lannisters between us. Then Stannis hits them from the third side with his 20,000. Total encirclement. Complete destruction. Stannis won't like being subordinate to your plan, Roose observed. Then we present it as his plan, Robb said. Let him think it was his idea. Stannis wants to be the hero. Wants to be the savior. Let him have that. As long as we win, I don't care who gets credit. They debated details for 2 more hours. Where to position forces, how to bait the trap, what signals to use, how to coordinate 3 separate armies without the Lannisters intercepting their ravens. By the end, they had a workable strategy. Risky. Dependent on Tywin making predictable choices. But possible. We present this to Stannis tomorrow, Robb said. Frame it as a joint operation. Emphasize that his role is crucial. Make him feel valued. Then we pray he agrees. The council broke up. Jon was heading to his chambers when Melisandre appeared from a shadowed corridor. We need to talk, she said. I don't think that's a good idea, Jon replied. I don't care what you think is a good idea, Melisandre said. The Lord of Light has shown me things. Things you need to know. Jon sighed. Fine. Talk. Not here, Melisandre said. Too many ears. My chambers. Now. Against his better judgment, Jon followed. Ghost padded beside him, the white direwolf's presence comforting. Melisandre's chambers were in Riverrun's guest tower, decorated in red silk that made the room feel like the inside of a heart. Close the door, Melisandre said. Jon did. Ghost sat beside him, red eyes fixed on the Red Priestess. I've been looking into the flames, Melisandre said without preamble, seeking guidance about you. About your role, and I've seen disturbing things, such as betrayal, Melisandre said. Someone close to Lord Robb. Someone he trusts, planning treachery. I can't see who. The flames show me glimpses, not certainty. But the threat is real. Who? Jon demanded. Which lord? I don't know, Melisandre admitted. The visions are unclear, but I see pale eyes. Cold eyes. Eyes like dirty ice. And I see a flayed man. And I see Winterfell burning. Jon's blood ran cold. Pale eyes like dirty ice. That described Roose Bolton. And the flayed man was House Bolton's sigil. Roose Bolton, Jon said. Perhaps, Melisandre said. But I can't be certain. The Lord shows me possibilities, not certainties. All I know is that someone is planning betrayal, and Robb needs to be warned. I'll tell him, Jon said. But he'll want proof, not just visions. Then find proof, Melisandre said. Watch Lord Bolton. Watch everyone close to Robb. Someone is going to betray him. If you can't identify who before it happens, you might save his life. Why tell me? Jon asked. Why not go to Robb directly? Because he doesn't trust me, Melisandre said. Doesn't believe in the Lord of Light. But you've seen the dead walk. You've fought them. You know there are powers in this world beyond the material. You might actually listen. I'll watch Bolton, Jon promised. But Melisandre, what do you actually want from me? Why are you helping? Because the Lord has shown me your importance, Melisandre said. You stand at the center of everything that's coming. The war against the Lannisters is just the beginning. The real war, the war that matters, is coming. And when it does, you'll be essential. I don't fully understand why. Don't see the complete picture, but I know you need to survive. So I'm helping you survive. And Stannis, Jon asked, what happens when you decide I'm more important than him? I don't know, Melisandre admitted. Stannis has been my purpose for years, my mission. I've believed in him, served him, sacrificed for him. But the flames never lie, and they show me you, not him. That terrifies me, Jon Snow. Because if I've been wrong about Stannis, if I've wasted years serving the wrong king, then everything I've done has been for nothing. For the first time, Jon saw uncertainty in her eyes, saw fear. Melisandre wasn't the confident prophet she pretended to be. She was as lost as anyone, trying to interpret visions she didn't fully understand, serving a god whose plans she couldn't predict. Then stop trying to figure it out, Jon said. Stop looking for prophecies and chosen ones. Just do what's right. Help us fight the Lannisters. Help us prepare for the others. Whether I'm Azor Ahai or Stannis is or neither of us are, doesn't matter. What matters is being ready. Spoken like a true unbeliever, Melisandre said. But she smiled. Perhaps that's what the Lord sees in you. Not faith, but pragmatism. The willingness to do what needs doing regardless of prophecy. Perhaps, Jon agreed. Or perhaps your God is just showing you someone who's trying not to get killed. Either way, I'll watch Bolton. And I'll tell Robb about your warning. But after that, you stay away from me. Stop seeing me in flames. Stop telling Stannis I'm important. Just let me fight this war in peace. I can't promise that, Melisandre said. But I'll try to be less obvious about my interest. Jon left her chambers, feeling deeply unsettled. If Roose Bolton was planning betrayal, Robb needed to know. But accusing a major lord based on a Red Priestess's visions would cause massive problems. He needed proof, real evidence. He would watch Bolton, watch carefully, and hope Melisandre was wrong. But in his gut, Jon knew she wasn't. The next day, Robb presented the battle plan to Stannis. They met in Riverrun's great hall with all the major commanders present. Stannis sat at the head table with his key knights. Robb presented the strategy as a joint operation, emphasizing Stannis' crucial role as the hammer that would crush the Lannister force. Stannis listened in silence, his face unreadable. When Robb finished, the king was quiet for a long moment. You're using the Targaryen boy as bait, Stannis said. I'm using a mobile force to draw out the enemy, Robb corrected. Jon leads it because the Lannisters will prioritize capturing a Targaryen. It makes the bait more tempting. And if they capture him, they won't, Robb said. We'll have scouts monitoring enemy movements. The direwolves will provide early warning. And the moment the Lannister force commits, we spring the trap. It's risky, Stannis said. Too many variables. Too many things that can go wrong. All battles are risky, the Blackfish said. But this plan gives us our best chance of destroying a significant portion of Tywin's army without fighting him at full strength. You assume he'll send exactly the force you expect. You assume your scouts won't be detected. Those are a lot of assumptions. We've won every battle we've fought by making smart assumptions, Robb said. At the Whispering Wood, I assumed Jaime would be arrogant enough to pursue what he thought was a retreating force. At Oxacross, I assumed Stafford Lannister's new recruits would panic when their horses stampeded. I was right both times. I'm betting I'm right about this too. Stannis studied Robb for a long moment. You're young, untested. You've won a handful of battles against commanders who underestimated you. But Tywin Lannister doesn't underestimate anyone. He's been fighting wars since before you were born. Are you really arrogant enough to think you can outmaneuver him? I'm arrogant enough to try, Robb said, because the alternative is sitting here doing nothing, while Tywin consolidates his position and the Tyrells bring their 80,000 men to bear. We need to act, now, while we still have the initiative. He's right, one of Stannis' knights said. Stannis turned to look at the speaker, a weathered man with a lined face. Your Grace, waiting favors the Lannisters. Every day we delay is a day they get stronger. Lord Robb's plan is aggressive, risky, but it's better than passive defense. Ser Davos, Stannis said. You think this is wise? I think it's our best option, the man, Davos, replied. And I think Lord Robb has proven he knows how to win battles. We should trust his judgment. Stannis was silent for another long moment. Then he nodded curtly. Fine. We proceed with the plan. But I want daily reports. I want to know every movement, every contact, every change. And if it starts going wrong, we abort immediately. Understood? Understood, Robb said. And one more thing, Stannis said. He looked at Jon. You. Jon Snow. If you're captured, we're not trading anything for you. Not Jaime Lannister. Not gold. Not concessions. You volunteered to be bait. You accept the consequences if it goes wrong. I accept them, Jon said. Good, Stannis said. Then we have an accord. When do we march? 3 days, Robb said. That gives us time to coordinate position forces and make final preparations. Jon's force heads west into the Westerlands. The main northern army positions north of Harrenhal. Your force, Your Grace, positions east. When Tywin's force moves to intercept Jon, we close the trap from 2 sides. And what about the direwolves? Stannis asked. I've heard stories. Are they as dangerous as people claim? More dangerous, Robb said. Grey Wind has killed dozens of men, panicked hundreds more. He's a weapon as much as a soldier. And Ghost is even more deadly in some ways. He's completely silent, can scout positions without making a sound. Between them, we have advantages the Lannisters can't counter. Sorcery, one of Stannis' knights muttered. Nature, Robb corrected. Direwolves are rare, but they're not magical. Just animals. Very large, very deadly animals that happen to bond with their handlers. Still unsettling, Stannis said, but useful. Use every advantage you have. The Lannisters certainly will. The council continued for another hour, working through logistics and coordination. By the end, they had a detailed battle plan. Risky, complicated, dependent on Tywin making predictable choices. But it was a plan, and it was better than sitting idle while the Lannisters regrouped. That night, Jon couldn't sleep. He lay in his chambers with Ghost beside him, staring at the ceiling, thinking about what was coming. In 3 days, he would lead 2,000 men into enemy territory, would serve as bait to draw out the Lannisters, would risk his life on the hope that Robb's plan worked and the trap closed before the Lannisters killed him. He thought about his vows to the Night's Watch. I shall take no wife, hold no lands, father no children. He'd broken those vows. Not technically. Mormont had released him. But spiritually, he'd chosen family over duty, chosen pack over honor. Would father approve? Jon wondered. Would Ned Stark understand? Or would he see me as an oathbreaker, no different than Jaime Lannister? He didn't know. Would never know. Ned was dead, executed by the Lannisters, and Jon would never have the chance to ask him. But he could honor Ned's memory. Could be the man Ned had raised him to be. Could protect Robb and the North and the family that mattered more than anything. Ghost stirred, pressing against Jon's side. The direwolf's warmth was comforting. Jon buried his hand in Ghost's fur and tried to find sleep. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The day after, more preparation. And in 3 days, war would begin in earnest. Jon could only hope he was ready. Blood and betrayal, the 3 days of preparation passed in a blur of constant activity. Jon drilled with the 2,000 men assigned to his command, a mix of northern cavalry and light infantry, chosen for speed and mobility rather than staying power. They were meant to look like a raiding force, not an army prepared for pitched battle. The illusion had to be perfect. The great Jon oversaw the training with his usual bluntness. "You lot look like a proper army. That won't do. You need to look like raiders. Undisciplined. Opportunistic. Make the Lannisters think you're easy prey." "How do we look undisciplined while still being able to fight?" one of the younger knights asked. "You fake it," the great Jon said. "You ride loose. You don't maintain perfect formations. You look like you're out for plunder, not conquest. But when the trap springs, you snap into proper fighting order. That's when discipline matters." Jon practiced with Longclaw every morning. His burned hand was stiff in the cold dawn air, requiring constant flexing to maintain dexterity. The Valyrian steel bastard sword was lighter than regular steel, a good half a foot longer than a standard longsword but easier to wield because of the 3 fullers that reduced weight. The ripples in the dark steel caught the light as he worked through the forms Ser Roderick Cassel had drilled into him years ago. "You're favoring your left side," Robb observed one morning, watching from the edge of the practice yard. Grey Wind sat beside him, the massive direwolf's yellow eyes tracking Jon's movements. "My right hand gets stiff," Jon admitted, pausing to flex his fingers. "The burn damage, if I don't keep it moving, it locks up." "Can you fight like that?" Robb asked. Concern colored his voice. "I've been fighting like that for months," Jon said. "At Castle Black, against whites. Against the cold, I've learned to compensate." "Compensating isn't the same as being at full strength," Robb said. "Jon, if your hand is a liability." "It's not," Jon interrupted. "I'm not as fast as I was, not as precise. But I'm still better than most men you'll find. And I have Longclaw." He held up the blade. "Valyrian steel. It cuts through regular steel like butter. Gives me an advantage that compensates for any loss of speed." Robb nodded slowly. "Just be careful. I'm sending you into danger. The least I can do is make sure you're ready for it." "I'm ready," Jon said. "The question is whether the plan will work." "It'll work," Robb said with confidence Jon wasn't sure he felt. "Tywin is smart, but he's also predictable. He values his family's legacy above everything. The chance to capture a Targaryen prince, to use you as a hostage, or kill you publicly, he won't be able to resist." "And if he sends 20,000 men instead of 10? Jon asked. "Then we adapt," Robb said. "Pull back, avoid contact. Force him to chase us deeper into the Riverlands, where we can control the terrain. But I don't think he will. Tywin's army is already divided. He can't spare more than 10,000 for what looks like a minor raid." Jon hoped Robb was right, but he'd learned at the Wall that hope wasn't strategy. You planned for success but prepared for failure. Always had an escape route. Always had contingencies. That afternoon, Jon met with his key commanders, men who would lead the various elements of his force. They gathered in a small council chamber to review the plan one final time. Present were Daisy Mormont, Mega's eldest daughter, and a warrior in her own right, a grizzled Umber captain named Mors, a Glover knight named Robet, and surprisingly, one of Stannis's men, a sellsword captain named Salad Horsan, who commanded a company of light cavalry. "We ride west tomorrow at dawn," Jon said, pointing to the map. "Into the Westerlands. We'll burn a few villages. Take some livestock. Make it look like a genuine raid. But we're not going deep. We're staying within 2 days' ride of the Riverlands border." "That's close," Daisy Mormont observed. She was tall for a woman, broad-shouldered, with her mother's practical demeanor. "Close enough that Tywin might suspect a trap." "That's the balance we're walking," Jon agreed. "Too deep and we're actually at risk. Too shallow and Tywin won't take the bait. 2 days in gives us enough buffer to retreat if we need to, but looks aggressive enough to warrant a response." "What if the response is cavalry?" Mors asked. "If Tywin sends fast riders to catch us before we can withdraw?" "Then ghost scouts ahead," Jon said. The white direwolf lay in the corner, silent as always. He can cover ground faster than any horse and make no sound doing it. If there's a force approaching, we'll know before they see us. And if we're caught anyway? Salador San asked. The sellsword had a jovial manner that seemed out of place in a war council, but his eyes were sharp. If this trap of Lord Robb's fails and we're facing 10,000 Lannisters with only 2,000 men, we run, Jon said bluntly. This force isn't designed to fight a pitched battle. We're fast, mobile, lightly equipped. If the trap fails, we scatter and make for friendly territory. Every man knows the rally points. Honorable, Salador said with a grin. I am liking this plan less and less, but at least you are honest about the danger. They reviewed the details for another hour. Routes in and out of the Westerlands, signal fires for communication, where Robb's main force would be positioned, where Stannis would wait with his 20,000. The timing had to be perfect. Too soon and the Lannisters would escape the trap too late, and Jon's force would be destroyed. When the council ended, Daisy lingered. May I speak plainly? She asked. Always, Jon said. You're Rhaegar Targaryen's son, Daisy said, the Mad King's grandson. Half the North thinks you're going to turn into a dragon-obsessed tyrant. The other half thinks you're a Lannister trick to divide us. And you're walking into enemy territory with a target painted on your back. She paused. Why? Why risk yourself like this? Because Robb asked me to, Jon said simply. Because he's Pack. Because this plan only works if the Lannisters believe catching me is worth committing significant forces. And because someone has to go. Better me than someone else. That's noble, Daisy said. Also stupid, but noble. Thank you, Jon said. Daisy smiled. I'm coming with you, leading the Mormont contingent. 300 men, good fighters. And we've been training with spears specifically to counter cavalry. If the Lannisters send horsemen, we'll make them pay for every yard. I'm glad you're with us, Jon said honestly. Don't be, Daisy said. If this goes wrong, we all die. There's nothing glad about that. But her eyes showed respect. Still, better to die fighting than sitting safe in a castle. My mother raised me to be a warrior. This is what warriors do. She left. Jon returned to his chambers to find Robb waiting with Grey Wind. Last chance to back out, Robb said. I can lead the raiding force myself. You stay here with the main army. No, Jon said firmly. The plan requires a Targaryen as bait. That's me. You're king in the north. You can't risk yourself on something this dangerous. I'm risking you instead, Robb said. My brother, my cousin, the person I trust most in the world. That doesn't feel better, Jon. It feels worse. Then trust that I can handle it, Jon said. I survived the wall, survived fighting whites, survived leaving the watch and coming south through hostile territory. I'm not helpless, Robb. I can fight. I can lead. Let me prove it. Robb gripped Jon's shoulder. You don't have anything to prove. Not to me. Not to anyone. You're already worthy, already brave. Already everything Father raised you to be. Then let me show the Northern Lords that, Jon said. Half of them still see me as a Targaryen pretender. Let me prove I'm Stark first. That I bleed for the North just like any other son of Winterfell. You'll bleed, Robb said quietly. I just hope it's not fatally. They embraced. Grey Wind and Ghost touched noses. The two direwolves understanding something was coming even if they didn't understand what. One more thing, Jon said. Melisandre warned me. Said she saw betrayal in her flames. Someone close to you planning treachery. She saw pale eyes, cold eyes, and a flayed man. Robb's expression darkened. Roose Bolton, maybe, Jon said. She couldn't be certain. But we need to watch him. Watch everyone. Someone is planning something, and we need to figure out who before it's too late. I'll be careful, Robb promised. But Jon, don't let prophecies and visions distract you. Focus on the mission. Lead your men. Spring the trap. We'll worry about Bolton after we've won. Jon nodded, but the unease remained. Rose Bolton's soft voice and cold eyes haunted him. Something was wrong with that man. Something dangerous. After the battle, Jon promised himself. After we've beaten the Lannisters, then I'll investigate Bolton properly. Find out what he's hiding. If they survived the battle. If the plan worked. If everything went according to Robb's strategy. Too many ifs. Too many variables. Too many ways this could go catastrophically wrong. But there was no other choice. The war demanded action. demanded risks, demanded that someone step forward and do the dangerous thing. And Jon had spent his whole life preparing for this moment, even if he hadn't known it. Every lesson from Ned Stark, every drill with Sir Roderick, every night on the wall watching for threats in the darkness, all of it had led here, to this moment, this mission. This chance to prove he was more than his blood. He was Pack, and the Pack protected its own. Dawn broke cold and gray over River Run. Jon stood in the courtyard with his 2,000 men assembled behind him. They looked exactly as the great Jon had instructed, a raiding force, not an army. Loose formations. Mixed equipment. Some men wore northern furs, others Riverland's colors. It looked thrown together. Opportunistic. Perfect. Ghost sat at Jon's feet, the massive white direwolf drawing nervous glances from men who'd never seen such a creature up close. The wolf's red eyes scanned the assembled soldiers with unsettling intelligence. Robb came to see them off. Grey Wind followed, and the two direwolves touched noses, one final time before the brothers would separate. "Ride fast," Robb said. "Hit hard, and when you see the signal fires, get clear of the kill zone. Don't try to be a hero. I'll do what needs doing," Jon said. "Just make sure you close the trap when the time comes." "I will," Robb promised. "And Jon? Come back alive." "That's an order." "I'll try," Jon said. He mounted his horse, a northern Garren, sturdy and reliable. Ghost immediately took position beside him, matching the horse's pace perfectly. Jon raised his hand, signaling the column to move. They rode out of River Run's gates as the sun climbed above the horizon. 2,000 men heading west into enemy territory, heading toward danger, toward a trap that might catch them instead of the Lannisters. But heading forward, because that's what Starks did. They faced their fears. They did their duty. They protected Pack. The ride west took all day. They moved at a steady pace, not rushing but not dawdling either. The kind of speed a raiding force would maintain. By nightfall, they'd crossed into the Westerlands proper. "We camp here," Jon ordered. "Cold camp. No fires. We don't want to advertise our position yet." The men settled in with practiced efficiency. Jon posted sentries at regular intervals and sent Ghost to scout the surrounding area. The direwolf disappeared into the darkness without a sound. Daisy Mormont found Jon as he was checking the perimeter. "Your wolf is unsettling," she said. "The men keep asking if he's real or some kind of spirit." "He's real," Jon said. "It's what makes him so effective. The Lannisters will panic when they see him," Daisy predicted. "Men who've never seen a direwolf won't know what to make of a beast that size that makes no sound." "That's the idea," Jon said. "Fear is a weapon. We use every weapon we have." Ghost returned 2 hours later. Jon had learned to read the direwolf's body language over months at Castle Black. The way Ghost held his ears indicated all clear, no immediate threats in the surrounding area. "Good boy," Jon murmured, scratching behind Ghost's ears. The direwolf leaned into the contact, and Jon felt the bond between them strengthen. The connection that let him sometimes slip into Ghost's mind, see through Ghost's eyes. The old power, the warg ability that ran in Stark blood. He didn't understand it, didn't fully control it, but it was real, and it might save his life in the days to come. The next morning, they burned their first village. It was a small place, maybe 30 families. The small folk fled at the sight of 2,000 armed men approaching. Jon's forces looted what supplies they could carry, grain, livestock, weapons, and then set fire to the buildings. Jon hated every moment of it. These were innocent people, farmers, craftsmen, people who had nothing to do with the war between Starks and Lannisters. But burning villages was what raiders did. The illusion had to be maintained. "I don't like this," Daisy said as they rode away from the burning buildings. Smoke rose into the gray sky. "Neither do I," Jon admitted. "But war doesn't give us the luxury of only doing things we like." They hit 2 more villages over the next day and a half. Each time the small folk fled. Each time Jon's forces took what they needed and burned the rest. Each time Jon felt a piece of his soul die. This is what Tywin does, Jon thought. This is what the Lannisters have been doing to the Riverlands. How am I any different? But he knew the answer. The Lannisters burned villages to terrorize the population, to break the will to resist, to punish people for supporting their enemies. Jon was burning villages to draw out an army, to create a trap, to end the war faster and save more lives in the long run. The math was cold, ruthless. but it was the only math that made sense. On the third day, Ghost returned from a scouting run with unusual urgency. The dire wolf's posture screamed warning, ears back, hackles raised, movements quick and nervous. "What is it?" Jon asked. Ghost couldn't answer in words, but Jon closed his eyes and reached for the connection. Slipped into the dire wolf's mind, saw through Ghost's eyes, and saw the Lannister army. Thousands of men, maybe 8,000, judging by the column's length. Cavalry and infantry both, moving fast, heading directly toward Jon's position. Jon pulled back from the connection, gasping. The sensation of being Ghost was always disorienting, seeing the world through different eyes, smelling things human noses couldn't detect, feeling the wolf's instincts overlaying his own thoughts. "We have company," Jon announced. 8,000 men, moving fast, maybe 6 hours away. 8,000? Morse said. "That's close to what Lord Robb predicted. But it's also enough to crush us if we stand and fight." "We're not standing and fighting," Jon said. "We're leading them to the kill zone. Everyone mount up. We ride for the designated fallback point. Fast but not panicked. We need to stay ahead of them but look like we're running scared." The column formed up quickly. Jon sent Ghost ahead to continue scouting while they rode east, back toward the Riverlands border. Behind them, the Lannister army followed. It was a delicate balance. Too slow and the Lannisters would catch them. Too fast and the Lannisters might suspect a trap and break off pursuit. Jon had to judge the pace perfectly. They rode hard for 4 hours. Jon could feel his men getting tired. Horses were flagging, men were swaying in their saddles. But they had to maintain the pace. Ghost returned periodically with updates. The Lannister force was gaining but slowly. They'd be in contact within 2 more hours. "We're almost there," Jon called to his commanders. "The valley ahead, that's where we make our stand. Robb's forces should be in position on the north ridge, Stannis on the south. When the Lannisters enter the valley, the trap closes." "What if they're not in position?" Saladhor Saan asked. "Then we die," Jon said bluntly. "But they'll be there," Robb promised. And Robb keeps his promises. They reached the valley as the sun began its descent toward the horizon. It was perfect terrain for an ambush. Steep ridges on both sides, a narrow floor that would constrain the Lannister forces, limited escape routes. If Robb and Stannis were in position, the Lannisters would be trapped. Jon positioned his forces at the valley's eastern end, 2,000 men in defensive formation, blocking the exit. They looked exhausted, desperate, like a raiding force that had been caught and was making a final stand. The Lannister army appeared an hour later, 8,000 men, just as Ghost had reported. They marched in good order, confident in their numerical superiority. At their head rode a knight in ornate armor, decorated with a peacock pattern. Ser Adam Marbrand, if Jon remembered the sigils correctly. A capable commander, known for his skill with cavalry, the Lannister forces halted 400 yards away. Marbrand rode forward with a small guard, stopping at the edge of arrow range. "Jon Snow," Marbrand called. His voice carried across the valley. "Or should I call you Jon Targaryen? Surrender now and I guarantee your life. Lord Tywin wants you alive. Resist, and my men will cut you down." Jon rode forward to meet him, Ghost padding beside his horse. "Sir Adam, I'm afraid I can't do that. I have orders from my king to raid the Westerlands. Surrendering would be disobeying those orders." "Your king?" Marbrand laughed. "The boy who calls himself king in the north? He's a rebel. A traitor. There's only one king, Joffrey Baratheon, and he wants you dead. But Lord Tywin values you alive. Choose wisely." "I choose to fight," Jon said. "Then you choose death," Marbrand replied. "You have 2,000 men, exhausted, undersupplied. At the end of a long retreat, I have 8,000 fresh soldiers. The math is simple, boy. Surrender or die." "There's a third option," Jon said. "You could withdraw. Go back to Harrenhal. Tell Tywin you couldn't catch us. Save your men from what's coming." "What's coming?" Marbrand asked. But Jon saw uncertainty flicker in his eyes. The knight was looking at the ridges, realizing how perfect this terrain was for an ambush, starting to suspect. "Look at the ridges," Jon said calmly. "Look at how convenient this valley is, how perfectly positioned we are. Do you really think this is an accident?" Marbrand's face paled. He wheeled his horse and rode back toward his lines. Jon watched him go and prayed to whatever gods might be listening that Robb was in position, that Stannis hadn't changed his mind, that the trap was actually set and not just a hope. Marbrand's forces began forming battle lines, 8,000 men preparing to advance. Jon's 2,000 waited, every man understanding this was the moment. If the trap didn't spring, they were all dead. The Lannister army began to advance, and from the north ridge horns blew. 15,000 northern soldiers poured over the ridge like an avalanche. Cavalry in the lead, infantry following, banners streaming. Grey Wind leading the charge, his howl echoing through the valley. From the south ridge, more horns. Stannis' 20,000 men crashed down from the opposite side. The crowned stag of Baratheon. The fiery heart of the Red God. A wall of steel and fury. The Lannisters panicked. They'd been confident in their numbers, certain of victory. Now they faced 45,000 enemies attacking from three sides simultaneously. Marbrand tried to rally his men, tried to form defensive positions, but it was too late. The northern cavalry hit the Lannister left flank like a hammer. Horses screamed. Men died. Grey Wind tore through the formation, massive jaws closing on throats and limbs. The direwolf was a terror, larger than any natural wolf, vicious beyond measure, fearless. Men broke and ran at the sight of him. Stannis' forces smashed into the Lannister right. Disciplined, methodical, grinding forward with relentless pressure. No mercy. No quarter. Just brutal efficiency. And Jon's 2,000, exhausted and undersupplied, suddenly became the anvil. The Lannisters were driven back against them, caught in a three-way vice with nowhere to go. "Advance!" Jon shouted. He drew Longclaw, the Valyrian steel blade, singing as it cleared the scabbard. For the north, for House Stark. His men surged forward. Fresh energy born of relief and rage. They weren't trapped anymore. They were the trappers, and the Lannisters were going to pay. Jon fought his way into the chaos. Longclaw was lighter than regular steel, faster, deadlier. It cut through Lannister armor like cloth. His burned hand ached but held. His training from Ser Roderick sustained him. A Lannister knight charged. Jon sidestepped, brought Longclaw around in a horizontal arc. The Valyrian steel blade cut through the knight's gorget, through his neck, through vertebrae. The man's head tumbled from his shoulders. Another soldier thrust with a spear. Jon batted it aside, advanced, drove Longclaw through the man's chest, pulled it free, moved to the next enemy. Ghost was beside him, silent as death. The white direwolf took down a soldier, jaws closing on the man's throat. No sound. No warning, just sudden, brutal death. The battle devolved into massacre. The Lannisters tried to fight, tried to break out. But they were surrounded, outnumbered 5-1, trapped in terrain that favored their enemies. Sir Adam Marbrand made one last desperate attempt to rally his men. He fought with skill and courage, cutting down northern soldiers, trying to create an opening for his forces to escape. Robb met him personally. Grey Wind took Marbrand's horse out from under him. The knight hit the ground hard. Robb dismounted, faced him sword to sword. "Yield," Robb said. "You've lost. Your men are dying. Yield and I'll spare you." Marbrand looked around, saw his army being destroyed, saw the impossible situation, saw that continuing to fight was just sending more men to pointless deaths. "I yield," Marbrand said. He dropped his sword. The word spread. The Lannister forces began surrendering in clusters. Not everyone. Some fought to the death, too proud or too frightened to trust their enemy's mercy. But enough surrendered that the killing slowed. By sunset, it was over. 8,000 Lannister soldiers had marched into the valley. Perhaps 1,500 survived to be taken prisoner. The rest lay dead or dying on the blood-soaked ground. Jon walked through the aftermath, Ghost at his side. The direwolf's white fur was matted with blood. Jon's own armor was splattered crimson. His sword, Longclaw, the blade Jorah Mormont had given him, dripped red. He had killed men today. Many men, more than he could count. And he felt nothing. No triumph. No guilt. Just exhaustion and a deep, bone-deep weariness. This is war, Jon thought. This is what it actually means. Not songs, not glory, just blood and death and trying not to think about the faces of the men you killed. Robb found him an hour later. "Jon, you all right?" "I'm alive," Jon said. That's more than I can say for a lot of men. We won, Robb said. Destroyed a third of Tywin's army. Captured Marbrand and dozens of other valuable knights. And we did it with minimal casualties on our side. Maybe 300 dead, against 6,500 Lannister dead. That's a decisive victory. It's a slaughter, Jon said. It's war, Robb corrected. And we're winning. Jon, this changes everything. Tywin lost 8,000 men. That's massive. He can't hold the Riverlands anymore. He'll have to withdraw to Harrenhal, or even back to the Westerlands. We've broken his offensive capability. For now, Jon said. But he still has the Tyrells. Still has 30,000 men at Harrenhal. This isn't over. No, Robb agreed. But it's a huge step forward. And you did this. Your force as bait. Your willingness to risk yourself. We couldn't have won this without you. Jon wanted to feel proud, wanted to believe he'd done something worthwhile. But all he could think about was the faces of the men he'd killed. Young men, old men, soldiers following orders, all dead because he'd led them into a trap. Come on, Robb said. Stannis wants to meet. Discuss next steps. You should be there. They walked to the command tent where Stannis waited with his commanders. The king looked grim but satisfied. A solid victory, Stannis said without preamble. Well executed. Minimal losses on our side. Maximum damage to the enemy. This is how wars should be fought. This is how slaughters happen, Jon said. We killed thousands of men who couldn't escape, couldn't fight back effectively. It was murder. It was tactics, Stannis said coldly. You think war is supposed to be fair? Honorable? It's about killing your enemies efficiently. We did that today. Be proud of it. I'm not proud of it, Jon said. I'm sick of it. Then you're a fool, Stannis said. War requires hard choices. Hard actions. If you can't stomach that, you shouldn't be commanding men. Maybe I shouldn't, Jon, Robb said quietly. This isn't the time. We won. We should be planning our next move, not arguing about morality. Jon bit back his response. Robb was right. The battle was over. The moral accounting would have to wait. They spent the next 3 hours planning where to position forces, whether to press the advantage or consolidate gains, how to use the captured knights as bargaining chips. By the time the council ended, Jon was exhausted. He returned to his tent, stripped off his bloody armor, and collapsed onto his bedroll. Ghost lay beside him. The dire wolf was also exhausted, his breathing slow and deep. Jon reached out and stroked the white fur, now stained pink from blood that refused to wash completely clean. We did it, Jon whispered to Ghost. We won. We're alive. But the victory felt hollow, felt like ash in his mouth. He had proven he could fight, could lead, could kill when necessary. But at what cost? What piece of himself had he left on that blood-soaked valley floor? He didn't know. Couldn't articulate it. Could only lie in the darkness and try to find sleep despite the faces of dead men haunting him. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new battles, new choices between survival and honor. But tonight, Jon Snow, Jon Stark, Jon Targaryen, whoever he was, could only close his eyes and pray for dreamless sleep. It didn't come. Instead, he dreamed of fire and ice, of a great war coming, of dead men walking, of a flaming sword in his hand and darkness all around. And when he woke in the gray dawn, Ghost was pressed against him, the direwolf's red eyes watching the tent flap as if expecting enemies to burst through at any moment. The war isn't over, Jon realized. It's barely begun, and I'm going to have to do this again. And again, until either we win or we're all dead. It was not a comforting thought, but it was reality. And Jon had learned at the wall that reality didn't care about comfort, only about survival. He rose, dressed, checked his weapons, and prepared for whatever came next. Because that's what Starks did. They endured. They survived. They protected Pack. And the Pack had just won a major victory. Now they had to figure out how to turn that victory into something lasting. Before the Lannisters rallied. Before Tywin counterattacked. Before the Tyrells brought their 80,000 men to bear. Before the North fractured completely under the weight of its secrets and lies. Before everything Jon had fought for turned to ash. 3 days after the battle, a raven arrived from Winterfell. Robb read it in his command tent with Jon, Catelyn, and his key commanders present. As he read, his face went white, then red, then settled into a mask of cold fury. "What is it?" Catelyn asked. "Robb, what's happened?" "Winterfell," Robb said. His voice was strangled. "Winterfell has fallen." The tent went silent. "Fallen?" the Great Jon demanded. "To who? The Lannisters can't have gotten that far north." "The Ironborn—" "Not Ironborn," Robb interrupted. He read from the letter. "This is from Ser Rodrik Cassel, or rather, it was written before he died. He was marching to retake Winterfell from Theon Greyjoy. But when he arrived, Roose Bolton's bastard was there with 600 men from the Dreadfort. The bastard, Ramsay Snow, betrayed everyone, killed Rodrik, killed the Ironborn, sacked Winterfell, and took Bran and Rickon. Jon felt his blood turn to ice. Your brothers. My cousins. Are they? We don't know, Robb said. His hands shook as he held the letter. The raven is old. Days old. Anything could have happened since then. Catelyn swayed. Jon caught her arm, steadied her. My babies, she whispered. My little boys, Roose Bolton, the Great Jon said. His voice was deadly quiet. His bastard did this. On his orders, all eyes turned to Roose Bolton, who stood near the back of the tent. The Lord of the Dreadfort's face was impassive. His pale eyes showed nothing. I gave no such orders, Roose said calmly. My son acted without my knowledge or consent. I'm as shocked as you are. You're a liar, Robb said. His hand moved to his sword. Your bastard doesn't command 600 men without your approval. Doesn't march on Winterfell without your orders. You planned this. You've been planning it all along. Prove it, Roose said. Still calm, still unruffled. You have a letter that says my bastard betrayed you. You have no evidence. I ordered it. I could just as easily claim Ramsay exceeded his authority. That he's a mad dog who slipped his leash. Melisandre warned us, Jon said. She saw betrayal. Pale eyes. A flayed man. Winterfell burning. She saw you, Lord Bolton. Saw your treachery. The ravings of a fire witch, Roose said dismissively. Not evidence. Not proof. Just visions and prophecies. Worthless. Robb drew his sword. I don't need proof. I have enough. Roose Bolton, I charge you with treason, with conspiring against the North, with the murder of Ser Rodrik Cassel and the kidnapping of my brothers. How do you answer these charges? Roose smiled. It was a terrible expression. Cold? Merciless? I answer that you're too late, boy. Winterfell is mine. Your brothers are my hostages, and you've just destroyed a third of your military strength chasing Lannisters, while I secured the real prize. He moved with sudden speed, produced a dagger from his sleeve, threw it, not at Robb, at Catelyn. Jon saw it happen in slow motion, saw the blade flash through the air, saw Catelyn's shocked expression, moved without thinking. He threw himself in front of her, felt the dagger punch into his shoulder. Pain exploded through him, but he stayed upright, Longclaw coming up to guard position. Roose was already running, moving toward the tent flap. The Great Jon tried to intercept him, but Bolton was faster than he looked. He ducked under the Great Jon's grab, slashed with another hidden knife, and burst through the tent flap. Guards, Robb shouted. Stop him. But Roose was gone, disappeared into the camp. And moments later, horns began blowing. Not northern horns. Different, deeper. That's a Bolton horn, the Great Jon said. He's got men in the camp. Hidden soldiers. We're under attack from within. Chaos erupted. Soldiers ran in all directions. Screams, the clash of steel. Fighting erupted throughout the camp as Bolton men who had been disguised as northern soldiers revealed themselves and began killing their supposed allies. Jon yanked the dagger from his shoulder. Blood flowed, but the wound wasn't deep. The blade had caught muscle, not anything vital. He pushed Catelyn toward Robb. Protect her. I'll find Bolton. Jon, you're wounded. Robb started. I'm fine, Jon lied. Ghost. With me. The white direwolf appeared from nowhere, silent as always. Jon and Ghost burst from the tent into chaos. The camp was a battlefield. Bolton men, maybe 300 of them scattered throughout the larger force, were trying to kill key commanders, trying to create maximum chaos, trying to destroy the Northern Army from within. Jon saw Mage Mormont fighting 3 Bolton soldiers simultaneously, her spiked mace crushing skulls. Saw Daisy Mormont defending her mother's flank with a spear. Saw the Great Jon emerge from the command tent with his greatsword roaring challenges. and saw Roose Bolton running toward the camp's edge, toward horses, toward escape. "Ghost!" Jon shouted. "Stop him!" The direwolf was a white blur, covered the distance in seconds, leaped, caught Roose by the arm and dragged him down. Rose screamed, the first genuine emotion Jon had heard from him. Ghost's jaws crushed bone. Rose stabbed at the direwolf with his knife, but the blade couldn't penetrate Ghost's thick fur and muscle. Jon reached them, kicked the knife from Roose's hand, stood over the Lord of the Dreadfort with Longclaw at his throat. "Call off your men," Jon demanded. "Surrender. Or die," Roose laughed. Blood bubbled from his lips. Ghost had broken something internal. Too late. Already done. Winterfell is mine. Your precious Stark boys are mine. And even if you kill me, you'll never get them back. Where are they? Jon pressed Longclaw against Roose's throat. Where are Bran and Rickon? The Dreadfort, Roose said. Safe, for now. As long as I'm alive, they're valuable hostages. Kill me and Ramsay kills them. That's my insurance policy. Jon wanted to drive the sword down, wanted to end this traitor. But Roose was right. If Bran and Rickon were at the Dreadfort, killing Roose might doom them. Take him, Jon called to nearby soldiers. Bind him. Guard him. He dies when I say so, and not before. They dragged Roose away. Ghost returned to Jon's side, his muzzle bloody. Jon scratched behind the direwolf's ears. Good boy. Very good boy. The fighting continued for another hour. The Bolton men fought desperately, but they were outnumbered. Most were killed. Some surrendered. A few escaped into the surrounding countryside. By dawn, it was over. 300 Bolton soldiers had infiltrated the camp. 270 were dead. 30 were prisoners. And they'd killed nearly 500 northern soldiers before being stopped. The cost was catastrophic, not just in lives but in trust. If Bolton could infiltrate the camp so completely, who else might be hiding among them? Which other lords were secretly plotting betrayal? Robb convened an emergency council at first light. His face was haggard, exhausted, the weight of command crushing down on him. Roose Bolton is a traitor, Robb said. His bastard holds Winterfell. Holds my brothers, and we don't know if they're alive or dead. We march north, the great Jon said immediately. Retake Winterfell. Kill the bastard. Rescue the boys. We can't, the Blackfish said. The Lannisters are still a threat. Tywin still has forces at Harrenhal. If we march north, we expose the Riverlands. Let Tywin reconquer everything we've won. My brothers are more important than the Riverlands, Robb said. Are they? Stannis asked. His voice was cold. You're king in the north. Kings don't abandon campaigns to rescue family members. They do what's necessary for the realm. They're children, Catelyn said. Bran is 8 years old. Rickon is 4. You'd leave them to Bolton's mercy? I'd recognize that chasing after them plays into Bolton's hands, Stannis said. He wants you divided, wants you marching north away from the real war. Don't give him what he wants. Then what do you suggest? Robb demanded. Send a small force, Stannis said. Fast riders, maybe 500 men. Led by someone you trust absolutely. They ride to the Dreadfort, negotiate for the boys, or rescue them if negotiation fails. Meanwhile, the main army stays here, continues the campaign against the Lannisters. Who leads this small force? The great Jon asked. Everyone looked at Jon. Me, Jon said. He felt the inevitability of it. I lead the rescue mission. Robb stays here with the army. I take 500 men to the Dreadfort and get Bran and Rickon back. It's a death trap, Roose Bolton said from where he sat in chains. Ramsay has 600 men at Winterfell, plus whatever garrison is at the Dreadfort. You'll be outnumbered. Surrounded in hostile territory. You'll all die. Then I die, Jon said. But I'm not leaving my cousins in your family's hands. Not while I'm alive. Robb looked at him. Jon saw the conflict in his brother's eyes. The need to rescue Bran and Rickon warring with the need to keep Jon safe. If you do this, Robb said, take the best men we have. Take Dacy Mormont's fighters. Take cavalry that can move fast. And take Ghost. You'll need every advantage. I will, Jon promised. And Jon, Robb gripped his shoulder. Come back, all of you. Don't make me choose between winning the war and losing my family. I'll come back, Jon said, with Bran and Rickon. I swear it. He didn't know if it was a promise he could keep. Didn't know if it was even possible. But he meant it. Every word. Because they were pack, and pack protected its own. Even unto death, the bastards keep Jon Snow rode north with 500 men and vengeance in his heart. They moved fast, light cavalry mostly, with minimal supply train. Speed mattered more than strength. Every day they delayed was another day Bran and Rickon remained in Ramsay Snow's hands. Another day the bastard of Bolton could hurt them, kill them, use them as leverage. The force was handpicked. Daisy Mormont led 300 northern fighters, hard men and women from Bear Island who knew how to fight in harsh terrain. 100 Umber cavalry, under Small John Umber, the Great John's massive son who was nearly as large as his father. 50 Glover riders, and 50 of Stannis's men, volunteers who wanted vengeance for the Bolton betrayal. And Ghost. The white direwolf ranged ahead constantly, scouting, watching, his red eyes missing nothing. They rode hard for 6 days, covering the 350 miles from River Run to the Dreadfort at a punishing pace, 40 to 50 miles per day, changing horses at friendly holdfasts, sleeping in the saddle when necessary. Jon's shoulder wound from Roos's dagger ached constantly, but he ignored it. Only the mission mattered. On the second day, a rider caught up to them. Jon recognized him, one of Stannis's men who had been part of the original war council. Message from King Stannis, the rider said, handing Jon a sealed letter. He said you'd want to read this immediately. Jon broke the seal and read, Jon Snow, Melisandre has looked into her flames regarding your mission. She sees great danger at the Dreadfort. Specifically, she sees dogs. Hunting hounds, vicious bitches trained to kill. The Bolton bastard uses them to hunt women. Be warned, he may use them against you. She also sees fire, Winterfell burning. But whether that fire is past or future, she cannot say. The visions are unclear. One more thing. She insists I tell you that you must survive this. That your death at the Dreadfort would doom the realm. I don't know if I believe her prophecies, but I'm telling you anyway. Don't die foolishly. The realm may yet need you. Stannis Jon passed the letter to Daisy Mormont. She read it and frowned. Hunting hounds. I've heard stories about the Bolton bastard, Ramsay Snow. They say he hunts women with dogs, releases them into the woods naked, gives them half a day's head start, then sets the hounds on them. I've heard the same stories, Small John rumbled. They say the women who give good sport get a quick death and have a bitch pup named after them. The ones who don't give good sport get flayed alive with no pup named for them. He's a monster, Jon said flatly, and he has my cousins. We need to get them out before he decides to make sport of them too. Bran's 8 years old, Daisy said, crippled, can't walk, and Rickon's 4. They're not threats. Why would Ramsay hurt them? Because he's his father's son, Jon said. Roose Bolton is ice cold, calculating, ruthless but controlled. His bastard is fire, savage, cruel, unpredictable. Roose would keep the boys alive as hostages because they're valuable. Ramsay might kill them just to see them die. They rode harder. The land changed as they traveled north. The riverlands gave way to the north. Darker forests, colder winds, scattered holdfasts instead of villages. This was home. Jon's home. The land Ned Stark had ruled and protected. And now that land was scarred. They passed burned villages. Ironborn raids, probably, from Balon Greyjoy's invasion. Saw refugees on the roads, heard stories of Moat Cailin falling to the Ironborn, cutting off the north from the south. We're isolated, Small John observed on the 4th day. The neck is held by Ironborn. Deepwood Moat fell to Asha Greyjoy. The north is being carved up while we fight Lannisters in the Riverlands. One problem at a time, Jon said. First we rescue Bran and Rickon. Then we deal with the Ironborn. Then we figure out how to win this war. Ambitious, Daisy said, but she smiled. I like it. Simple. Direct. Very Stark. On the 6th day they reached the Weeping Water. The river marked the boundary of Bolton lands. Across the water, perhaps 10 miles distant, sat the Dreadfort. Jon could see it in the distance, a dark fortress on the northern bank, its towers flying the flayed man of House Bolton. We camp here, Jon ordered. Send scouts across the river. I want to know exactly what we're facing before we commit. They made camp in a forest overlooking the Weeping Water. Ghost disappeared to scout, silent as always. Jon sent riders as well, men who knew the terrain, who could move quietly and observe without being detected. That night, Jon sat by the fire with Daisy and Small Jon, planning. We have 500 men. The Dreadfort's garrison is unknown. Could be 100. Could be 1,000. We need intelligence. What about Winterfell? Daisy asked. Ser Roderick's letter said Ramsay sacked it. Took the boys. But where are they now? At the Dreadfort? Still at Winterfell? We're assuming they're at the Dreadfort because that's what Roose said. But he's a liar. They could be anywhere. They're at the Dreadfort, Jon said with certainty. Roose said it to threaten us, to make sure we didn't kill him immediately. He wouldn't lie about something that important. If we found out the boys weren't there, we'd kill him instantly, and he knows it. Unless he's already sent word to have them killed, Small Jon said. He's been a prisoner for 6 days. That's long enough for a raven to reach the Dreadfort. Long enough for Ramsay to receive orders. Jon's blood ran cold. He hadn't considered that. Roose was cunning enough to arrange his son's deaths as revenge for his own capture. Vicious enough not to care about his family's future if he couldn't have it. Then we move fast, Jon said. Tomorrow, we cross the river and hit the Dreadfort before Ramsay has time to react. That's suicide, Daisy protested. We don't know the defenses. Don't know the garrison strength. Don't know where the boys are being held. We'd be attacking blind. We don't have a choice, Jon said. Every day we wait is a day Ramsay might kill them. I won't risk that. Ghost returned 2 hours later. Jon slipped into the direwolf's mind, seeing through Ghost's eyes, experiencing Ghost's memories of the scouting run. The Dreadfort was formidable. High walls, strong towers, a garrison of perhaps 300 men visible on the walls and in the courtyard. And something else. Kennels, housing dozens of hounds. The hunting hounds Melisandre had warned about. Jon pulled back from the connection, his head spinning from the disorientation. 300 garrison, maybe more inside we can't see, and they have dogs. Lots of dogs. The bastards' girls, Small Jon said grimly. His hunting pack. Mean bitches, trained to kill wolves. They'll be a problem. Ghost can handle dogs, Jon said. 1 dire wolf against 24 trained hunting hounds? Daisy shook her head. I've seen what hunting packs can do. They're vicious. Relentless. They'll tear Ghost apart through sheer numbers. Then we kill the dogs first, Jon said, before we assault the keep. We sneak in tonight. Ghost leads us to the kennels. We slaughter every hound before they can be released. And alert the garrison? Small Jon asked. We do it quietly, Jon said. Knives. Arrows. Silent kills. Ghost doesn't make a sound. That's his advantage. We use it. They planned for another hour. 20 men for the kennel raid. Jon, Ghost, Daisy, 10 of her best fighters, and 8 of the Glover riders who had experience with stealth operations. The rest of the force would position around the Dreadfort, ready to assault if the raid went wrong. At midnight, Jon's team crossed the weeping water. The river was cold, the current strong. They waded across at a shallow ford Ghost had found, keeping weapons and equipment above water. On the far bank, they moved through the forest toward the Dreadfort. Ghost led. The white direwolf was a phantom in the darkness, absolutely silent, visible only as a pale shape against the black trees. Jon followed, his burned hand gripping Longclaw's hilt. Behind him came Daisy and the others, moving with practiced stealth. They reached the Dreadfort's outer walls an hour before dawn. The kennels were outside the main walls, a long, low building with barred windows. Jon could hear the dogs inside, growling, shifting, restless. Quietly, Jon whispered, Daisy, take your people around the back. We hit from both sides simultaneously. Kill every dog before they can raise an alarm. Daisy nodded and disappeared with her fighters. Jon counted to 60, then signaled. His team moved to the kennel doors. Ghost went in first. Silent, deadly. Jon heard a brief cut-off yelp, then nothing. He followed with the others. The interior was a nightmare. 24 hunting hounds in cages. Mean-looking bitches, bred for aggression and trained to kill. Ghost had already killed 3, their throats torn out, blood pooling on the floor. Jon and his team moved quickly, opened cages, killed dogs before they could bark or howl. It was brutal work, necessary work. But Jon hated every moment. These were just animals, trained by humans to be vicious. It wasn't their fault they'd been turned into weapons. But they had to die. Because if Ramsay released them during the assault, They'd kill Jon's men. It was them or his people. The math was simple, even if it was ugly. They finished in 10 minutes. 24 hunting hounds dead, the kennels soaked in blood. Ghost's white fur was crimson. Now what? One of the Glover riders whispered. Now we get inside the keep, Jon said. Ghost, find a way in. The direwolf ranged around the walls, found a postern gate, a small door used by servants, less heavily defended than the main gate. Jon studied it. 2 guards visible on the wall above. Maybe more inside. We take the guards, Jon said. Quietly. Then we open the gate and let the main force in. How do we take the guards quietly? Daisy asked. They're 20 feet up on a wall. Watch, Jon said. He knocked an arrow, borrowed from one of the Glover riders, since he rarely used a bow. Drew, aimed, released. The arrow took the first guard in the throat. He fell without a sound. The second guard turned, surprised, and Daisy's arrow caught him in the eye. He dropped. That's how, Jon said. They moved to the postern gate. Jon tried the door, barred from the inside. He cursed silently. Ghost growled, a rare sound from the normally silent direwolf. Jon turned and saw why. A man stood in the shadows, watching them. He was filthy, stinking, dressed in rags, but his eyes were sharp, calculating. Who are you? Jon demanded, Longclaw coming up to guard position. Reek, the man said. His voice was broken. Servile. I am Reek. I serve the Dreadfort. I serve Lord Ramsay. Jon's blood ran cold. Reek. The servant Ramsay had used in his identity swap. The man who was supposed to be dead. You're supposed to be dead, Jon said. I was, Reek said. But Lord Ramsay let me live, gave me purpose. I serve him. Only him. His eyes glittered with madness. You're Jon Snow, the Targaryen bastard. Lord Ramsay said you might come. Said you'd try to rescue the Stark boys. Where are they? Jon demanded. Bran and Rickon. Where's Ramsay keeping them? Safe, Reek said. Lord Ramsay keeps them very safe. In the kennels. With the dogs. Oh wait, he looked at the blood-soaked kennel building. You killed the dogs. Lord Ramsay loved those dogs. He'll be very angry. I don't care, Jon said. Tell me where the boys are or I'll kill you right now. They're not here, Reek said. His smile was hideous. They're at Winterfell. Lord Ramsay kept them there. Uses them to keep the other prisoners in line. You've come to the wrong place, Jon Snow. Jon felt the world tilt. You're lying. Am I? Reek asked. Why would Lord Ramsay keep valuable hostages at the Dreadfort when Winterfell is better defended? When Winterfell has more men? When Winterfell is where he wants to be lord? Roose said they were at the Dreadfort, Jon said. Roose lied, Reek said simply. He does that, lies and schemes and plots. But I don't lie. I'm Reek. I only serve. And I serve by telling you the truth. The Stark boys are at Winterfell. Not here. You've wasted 6 days riding to the wrong castle. Jon wanted to kill him. Wanted to drive Longclaw through the man's chest and end his madness. But if he was telling the truth, if Bran and Rickon were actually at Winterfell, how many men at Winterfell? Jon demanded. 600, Reek said proudly. Lord Ramsay brought them all. Killed the Ironborn. Killed Sir Roderick, sacked the castle. Now he rules there, King of Winterfell, he calls himself. Waiting for King Robb to come north so he can kill him too. He's lying, Daisy said. Has to be. This is a trap. He's trying to split our forces, send us running to Winterfell while the Dreadfort garrison attacks from behind. Maybe, Jon said. Or maybe he's telling the truth, and we've been chasing the wrong target. Ghost pressed against Jon's leg. Jon looked down at the dire wolf and saw certainty in those red eyes. Ghost trusted his senses, his instincts, and Ghost was telling Jon that Reek was telling the truth. Winterfell, Jon said. He sheathed Longclaw. We ride for Winterfell. Now. That's 100 miles, Daisy protested. 2 days hard riding, and we don't know if this madman is telling the truth. We know, Jon said. Ghost knows. And I trust Ghost more than I trust anything else right now. What about Reek? One of the Glover riders asked. Jon looked at the filthy mad servant. Saw someone who had been broken by Ramsay Snow, turned into a thing instead of a person. A tool, A weapon. Let him go, Jon said. He's already damned. Killing him would be mercy, and I'm not feeling merciful. They withdrew from the dread fort, crossed the weeping water, gathered the main force and rode west toward Winterfell. Jon's mind raced as they rode. If Bran and Rickon were at Winterfell, if Ramsay held them there with 600 men, then assaulting the castle would be nearly impossible. Winterfell was built to withstand sieges. Ned Stark had once said 500 men could hold it against 10,000. But they didn't have time for a siege, didn't have time for a prolonged campaign. Every day that passed was another day Ramsay could hurt the boys, kill them, use them. They had to move fast, had to be smart, had to use every advantage they had, and their biggest advantage was Ghost, the silent direwolf who could move through a castle unseen, who could kill without warning, who could scout positions that no human could approach. "We're not assaulting Winterfell directly," Jon said that night as they camped halfway to their destination. "We're infiltrating. Small team. Ghost leads us in through the same way Theon got in. Grappling hooks over the walls at night. We find the boys, we get them out. Then we withdraw before Ramsay knows we were there." "That's insane," Small Jon said. "Winterfell's walls are 80 feet high on the outside, 100 feet on the inside. You'd need perfect conditions. Darkness, no guards, incredible luck. The moment someone sees you, you're trapped." "Then we make sure no one sees us," Jon said. "Ghost scouts ahead, kills sentries silently. We follow his path. Get in. Get the boys. Get out." "And the 600 Bolton soldiers?" Dacey asked. "They'll never know we were there," Jon said, "if we do this right. And if we do it wrong?" Small Jon pressed. "Then we die," Jon said simply. "But at least we'll die trying to save family. That's better than dying because we were too afraid to try." They planned through the night. 20 men for the infiltration. Jon, Ghost, Dacey, Small Jon, and 16 of the best fighters they had. The rest would remain hidden in the Wolf's Wood, ready to provide distraction if the infiltration failed. At dawn, they rode the final miles to Winterfell. Jon's heart broke when he saw it. The castle he'd grown up in, the home he'd loved despite never truly belonging there, was scarred. Burned sections showed where Ramsay's forces had set fires. The gate was damaged. The courtyard beyond was visible through gaps in the wall, and Jon could see Bolton soldiers moving around with the casual arrogance of conquerors. "They're not expecting an attack," Dacey observed. "Look at the sentries. Sloppy, undisciplined. They think they're safe here." "Ramsay's men aren't professional soldiers," Jon said. "They're thugs, criminals. Men who serve the Bolton bastard because he lets them commit atrocities. They know how to hurt people, but they don't know how to defend a castle properly." "That's our advantage," Small Jon said. "We use their complacency against them." They waited for nightfall. Jon spent the day studying Winterfell's defenses through a far eye borrowed from one of the Glover riders. Counted sentries, noted patrol patterns, identified weak points. The Hunter's Gate was damaged, probably from when Theon's Ironborn had entered. It would be easy to bypass if they could reach it. But it was on the far side of the castle from their position in the Wolf's Wood. The eastern wall was less damaged. Guards were sparse, maybe one sentry per 100 feet of wall. If they could get grappling hooks over without being seen, they could climb. As darkness fell, Jon gathered his infiltration team. Ghost scouts ahead. Kills any sentries on the eastern wall between the guesthouse tower and the bell tower. That's a 200-foot section. Should only be 2 guards. We wait for Ghost to clear them, then we go over the wall. Once inside, we head for the Great Keep. That's where prisoners would be held, in the tower cells. "What if the boys aren't in the tower cells?" Dacey asked. "Then we search," Jon said, quietly. "But they're there. They have to be." "And if we're caught?" Small Jon asked. "We fight our way out," Jon said. "But we don't get caught. We move like ghosts. Silent, invisible. In and out before Ramsay knows we were there." Ghost left first. The white direwolf disappeared into the darkness like mist. Jon waited, counting heartbeats, trusting Ghost to do what needed doing. 20 minutes later, Jon felt the connection pulse. Ghost's way of signaling that the path was clear. "Go," Jon whispered. They moved through the darkness toward Winterfell's walls, carried grappling hooks wrapped in cloth to muffle noise, reached the base of the eastern wall without being detected. Jon looked up. 80 feet of stone, in full view of anyone who happened to look this direction. If a sentry saw them climbing, they'd be trapped, helpless. But there was no other way. He threw the first grappling hook. It caught on the battlements with a soft click. He pulled, testing. Solid. "I go first," Jon said. "If I'm caught, the rest of you run. Don't try to save me. Just run." "Respectfully, my lord," Daisy said. "Fuck that. We're pack. We go together or not at all." Jon wanted to argue, wanted to protect them, but he saw the determination in their eyes and knew it was pointless. "Together then," Jon agreed. He began to climb. The stone was cold under his hands. His burned right hand ached, the scarred tissue protesting the strain. But he forced himself upward. Hand over hand, foot after foot, 80 feet of vertical stone between him and safety. He reached the top and pulled himself over the battlements. Ghost was waiting, silent as always. 2 dead sentries lay nearby, their throats torn out, blood pooling on the stone. Jon signaled down. One by one, his team climbed. 20 men, moving with practiced silence, until they all stood on Winterfell's walls. Home. Jon was home. For the first time since leaving for Castle Black, he stood in Winterfell. And it hurt, seeing the castle he loved occupied by enemies, seeing Bolton soldiers where Stark guards should be, seeing the Dreadfort's flayed man where the direwolf should fly. "Focus," Daisy whispered. "Where to?" "The Great Keep," Jon said. "This way." They descended from the walls using interior stairs, moved through shadows. Ghost ranged ahead, killing 2 more sentries before they could raise alarms. The direwolf's silence was absolute, not a growl, not a whine, just sudden death delivered from the darkness. They reached the Great Keep and found it guarded. 6 Bolton soldiers at the door. Too many to kill silently. "We need a distraction," Jon whispered. Small Jon grinned. "I'm good at distractions." He picked up a rock and hurled it across the courtyard. It clattered against a wall. The guards turned. "What was that?" "Go check," one of them ordered. 4 guards moved toward the sound. That left 2 at the door. Ghost killed them both before they could shout. Jaws closing on throats, crushing windpipes dragging them into shadows. "Inside," Jon said. "Fast." They entered the Great Keep. The interior was dark, lit only by a few torches. Jon knew every corridor, every room, every hiding place. He'd grown up here, had played in these halls as a child. The tower cells were above. Jon led his team up the stairs, Ghost padding ahead. They passed sleeping chambers, storerooms, and then voices coming from above. Guards talking. Jon raised his fist, halting the column, pressed himself against the wall, listened. "Don't know why the bastard keeps them alive. 2 little lordlings. Useless. We should just kill them and be done with it. The bastard has plans. Always has plans. Says the boys are insurance. If Robb Stark comes north, we use them as hostages. Trade them for our freedom. Robb Stark's in the Riverlands fighting Lannisters. He's not coming north. He will eventually. And when he does, we'll be ready." Jon's blood burned. They were talking about Bran and Rickon like they were things. Property, bargaining chips. He signaled Ghost. The direwolf moved up the stairs, silent as death. The guards never saw him coming. One moment they were talking. The next, Ghost was among them, jaws snapping, claws raking. 2 guards died in seconds. The third managed a brief, cut-off shout before Ghost's teeth crushed his throat. "Damn it," Jon muttered. "That shout might have been heard. We need to move fast." They raced up the stairs, found the door to the tower cells. It was barred from the outside. Jon lifted the bar and threw the door open. Inside were 2 cells, and in one of them, Bran, Jon whispered. His cousin sat in the corner, thin and pale and terrified. At 8 years old, Bran Stark looked like he'd aged years. His legs were useless. The fall that had crippled him had left them twisted and weak. But his eyes were sharp, intelligent, and they widened when he saw Jon. "Jon," Bran's voice was barely a whisper. "You're real? Not a dream?" "I'm real," Jon said. He moved to the cell, found the key on one of the dead guards, and unlocked the door. "We're getting you out of here. Rickon's in the other cell," Bran said. He's not doing well. They've been hurting him, trying to break him. He keeps fighting back, and they keep." His voice broke. Jon moved to the second cell, opened it, and saw his youngest cousin. Rickon Stark was 4 years old, should have been a child, innocent, happy. Instead, he was a hollow-eyed thing curled in the corner, covered in bruises. His wild auburn hair was matted with blood. His clothes were torn, and when he saw Jon, he didn't smile or cry out. He just stared with empty eyes. "Gods," Jon breathed. "What did they do to you?" Rickon said nothing. Just stared. "He hasn't spoken in days," Bran said. "Not since Ramsay?" He stopped, swallowed hard. "Jon, we need to go. Now. Before Ramsay comes, he checks on us every night. If he finds us gone, we're leaving," Jon said. He scooped Rickon into his arms. The boy was light, malnourished, shaking. Small Jon, carry Bran. Everyone else, defensive formation. We move fast, and we don't stop for anything. They raced back down the stairs, through the great keep, into the courtyard, and found 50 Bolton soldiers waiting. At their head stood a man Jon recognized from descriptions. Big-boned, slope-shouldered, fleshy, pink blotchy skin. Pale eyes like chips of dirty ice. "Ramsay Snow." "Jon Snow," Ramsay said, his wet lips curved in a smile. "Or is it Jon Stark? Or Jon Targaryen?" So many names for one little bastard. He looked at the boys in Jon's and Small Jon's arms. "And you found my prizes. How clever. Too bad you'll never leave with them." "Get out of our way," Jon said. Longclaw came up, the Valyrian steel blade catching torchlight. "I don't think so," Ramsay said. "You killed my dogs. That makes me very angry. I loved those dogs. Each one was named after a woman who gave me good sport, and you slaughtered them like they were nothing. They were monsters," Jon said. "Just like you." "Monsters," Ramsay laughed. It was a terrible sound. "I'm not a monster. I'm a Bolton. I'm my father's son, and I do what Boltons have always done. I take what I want and flay anyone who tries to stop me." He gestured. The Bolton soldiers advanced, 50 men against 20, and Jon's team was burdened with 2 children who couldn't fight. "We're surrounded," Dacey said quietly. "Jon, we can't fight our way through this." "We don't fight," Jon said. "We run. Ghost, clear a path." The white direwolf exploded into motion, charged the Bolton line. Massive jaws caught a soldier, threw him aside. Claws raked another. Ghost was a white terror, vicious and fast, and absolutely silent. The Bolton line wavered. Men stepped back, terrified of the beast. "Now," Jon shouted. His team ran, straight through the gap Ghost had created. Bolton soldiers tried to close ranks, but the direwolf was too fast, too deadly. He kept the path open just long enough for Jon's people to break through. They raced across the courtyard, toward the damaged Hunter's Gate. Behind them, Ramsay shouted orders. "After them! Don't let them escape. I want the Stark boys back, and I want Jon Snow's head." Bolton soldiers poured after them. Jon ran with Rickon in his arms. The boy's weight nothing compared to the adrenaline surging through him. Small Jon carried Bran, moving with surprising speed for a man his size. They reached the Hunter's Gate. It was damaged, hanging crooked on its hinges. Dacey and 3 of her fighters held it open while the rest of the team poured through. Ghost brought up the rear, turning to face the pursuing Bolton soldiers. The direwolf's red eyes gleamed in the darkness. He bared his teeth in a silent snarl. "Ghost, come," Jon called. The direwolf turned and ran, followed Jon's team through the gate, out of Winterfell, into the wolf's wood beyond. Behind them, Ramsay's voice echoed, "Find them! Search every tree, every shadow. I want them dead, all of them." Jon ran until his lungs burned, until his legs screamed, until Rickon's weight felt like carrying a mountain. But he didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Had to get the boys to safety. They reached the rally point where the main force waited. 480 men, mounted and ready. "We have them," Jon gasped. "Mount up. We ride. Now." The force moved immediately. Horses were brought forward. Jon mounted with Rickon still in his arms. The boy hadn't spoken, hadn't reacted, just clung to Jon with desperate strength. Bran was placed on a horse with Small Jon. Dacey and the infiltration team mounted, and they rode. East. Away from Winterfell. Away from Ramsay's hunters. Toward the King's Road. Toward safety. Behind them, Jon heard pursuit. Bolton cavalry crashing through the forest. Horns blowing, hounds baying. Not Ramsay's hunting pack, but regular tracker hounds that had survived. "They're following," Daisy called. "Jon, they're gaining." "Keep riding," Jon shouted back. "Don't stop. Get to the King's Road and we'll have more room to maneuver." They burst from the Wolfswood onto the King's Road. The ancient road stretched north and south, wide enough for cavalry to run full out. Jon's force wheeled south, racing toward friendly territory. The Bolton cavalry emerged from the forest minutes later, maybe 200 riders, moving fast, determined to catch them. "We can't outrun them," Small Jon said. "Not with the boys. They'll catch us within an hour. Then we stand and fight," Jon said. "Daisy, take 50 riders and the boys. Keep going south. Don't stop until you reach White Harbor. The rest of us will delay the Bolton forces." "Jon, no," Daisy protested. "That's suicide. 200 against our 400. We can beat them if we fight together." "We can beat them, but the boys might be hurt in the fighting," Jon said. "I won't risk that. Take them to safety. We'll catch up." Daisy looked like she wanted to argue, but she saw the determination in Jon's eyes and nodded. "Don't die, Jon Snow. Robb would kill me if I came back without you." She gathered 50 riders, took charge of Bran and Rickon, and rode south at full gallop. Jon turned to face the pursuing Bolton cavalry, with 430 men at his back. Ghost sat beside him, the direwolf's red eyes fixed on the approaching enemies. "Form line," Jon ordered. "Prepare to receive cavalry charge. Spears forward. Archers ready." His men formed up quickly, a line of steel and determination across the King's Road. Behind them, Daisy's group disappeared into the distance, carrying the Stark boys to safety. The Bolton cavalry charged, 200 riders against 400 defenders. The math favored Jon's forces, but cavalry charges were devastating. The impact alone could break formations. "Hold!" Jon shouted. "Wait for it! Wait for it!" The Bolton cavalry came closer. 100 yards, 50, 20. Now, loose. Arrows flew, 100 shafts released simultaneously. They punched into the Bolton charge, killing horses and riders. The formation wavered, but kept coming. Brace. The Bolton cavalry hit Jon's line like a hammer. The impact was tremendous. Men flew backward. Horses screamed. Steel clashed against steel. Jon fought with Longclaw, the Valyrian steel blade cutting through Bolton armor like cloth. His burned hand ached but held. Years of training from Ser Roderick sustained him. Ghost was a white terror. The direwolf tore through the Bolton cavalry, killing horses and riders with equal savagery. Men panicked at the sight of the massive beast, their mounts going mad with fear from Ghost's scent. The battle became a melee. No formations, no strategy, just brutal, desperate combat. Jon killed 3 men in as many minutes, saw Small Jon take down 5 with his greatsword, saw the Glover riders fighting with desperate courage, and saw, at the edge of the battlefield, Ramsay Snow. The Bolton bastard sat on his horse, watching the fight with those pale eyes, not participating, just observing, like this was entertainment. Jon felt rage burn through him. This monster had hurt Rickon, had terrorized Bran, had sacked Winterfell and murdered Ser Roderick, and now he watched men die for his amusement. "Ghost," Jon shouted. Ramsay, the direwolf, understood, turned, charged, straight at the Bolton bastard. Ramsay saw Ghost coming and his eyes widened. For the first time, Jon saw real fear on his face. The bastard wheeled his horse and ran, fled from the battlefield with Ghost in pursuit. "After him," Jon called to 10 riders nearby. "Don't let him escape." The riders spurred after Ramsay. But the bastard was fast, and his horse was fresh. He disappeared into the forest with Ghost and the pursuers behind him. The Bolton cavalry, seeing their leader flee, began to break. Without Ramsay to drive them forward, they had no reason to die here. They withdrew in clusters, heading back toward Winterfell. Jon let them go. His objective wasn't killing Bolton soldiers. It was buying time for Daisy to get the boys to safety. "Regroup," Jon ordered. "Count casualties. Anyone too wounded to ride gets a horse and an escort to White Harbor." They counted losses. 70 men dead. Another 40 wounded badly enough they couldn't continue fighting. Jon organized them into groups. The wounded went south with escorts. The rest of his force remounted and prepared to ride. Ghost returned an hour later, alone. No sign of Ramsay or the pursuing riders. Did you get him? Jon asked. Ghost's posture said no. The bastard had escaped. Somehow, despite Ghost's speed and the rider's pursuit, Ramsay Snow had vanished into the Wolfswood. Damn it, Jon muttered. We'll get him later. For now, we ride south. Catch up with Dacey. Get the boys to White Harbor where they'll be safe. They rode hard for 2 days, pushed the horses to their limits. Finally caught up with Dacey's group 20 miles from White Harbor. Bran was conscious and talking. Thin, traumatized, but alive and coherent. He smiled when he saw Jon. You came back, Bran said. I knew you would. Your pack. Always, Jon said. Rickon was worse. The boy still hadn't spoken. Still stared with those empty eyes. Whatever Ramsay had done to him had broken something inside. Something that might never heal. Jon held him as they rode, whispered to him, promised him safety, promised him that the monsters were gone, promised him everything would be all right. Rickon said nothing, just clung to Jon like he was the only solid thing in a world of darkness. They reached White Harbor on the 3rd day. Wyman Manderley greeted them personally. Lord Jon, Manderley said. He was an enormously fat man, but his eyes were sharp. Word reached us of your mission. Did you succeed? We have Bran and Rickon Stark, Jon said. Rescued from Winterfell. But we lost 90 men doing it, and Ramsay Snow escaped. Ramsay Snow is a monster, Manderley said. But the Stark boys are safe. That's what matters. Bring them inside. My maesters will tend to them. You and your men can rest. You've earned it. They entered White Harbor. Bran was taken to the maester immediately. Rickon went with him, still silent, still broken. Jon watched them go and felt a mix of triumph and despair. They'd saved the boys, rescued them from Ramsay's cruelty, but at what cost? 90 men dead, Rickon traumatized, Winterfell still in Bolton hands, and Ramsay Snow still alive, plotting his next atrocity. We won, Dacey said quietly. Jon, we actually won. Against impossible odds, we got the boys out. Did we? Jon asked. Look at Rickon. Look at what they did to him. Is that winning? He's alive, Dacey said firmly. He's safe. He'll heal. Maybe not today. Maybe not for years. But he'll heal. And that's better than the alternative. Jon wanted to believe her, wanted to think that saving the boys was worth the cost. But the faces of the 90 men who died haunted him. Men who would never go home, whose families would receive letters telling them their sons, fathers, brothers were dead. I need to send word to Robb, Jon said. Tell him we have the boys. Tell him about Bolton's treachery. Tell him everything. I'll write the letter, Dacey offered. You should rest. You look half dead. I feel half dead, Jon admitted. His shoulder wound from Roos's dagger had reopened during the fighting. His burned hand throbbed. His body ached from days of constant riding and fighting. But he couldn't rest. Not until he'd fulfilled his promise to Robb. He dictated the letter to Dacey, telling Robb everything. The journey to the Dreadfort. The discovery that the boys were at Winterfell. The infiltration. The rescue. The battle on the King's Road. The casualties. The fact that Ramsay had escaped. And the condition of the boys. Especially Rickon. When the letter was finished and sent via Raven, Jon finally allowed himself to collapse. He found a bed in Manderley's castle and fell onto it fully clothed. Ghost lay beside him. The direwolf's presence was comforting. Familiar. Constant. We did it, Jon whispered to Ghost. We saved them. Whatever happens next, we saved them. Ghost pressed closer, and Jon, for the first time in days, allowed himself to sleep. 2 weeks later, Jon stood on White Harbor's walls and watched ships arrive. Robb's fleet. The king in the north was coming to White Harbor to see his brothers, to thank Jon for rescuing them, to plan the next phase of the war. The ships docked, and Robb came ashore with an honor guard. Greywind bounded ahead, the massive grey direwolf running straight for Ghost. The two wolves touched noses, and Jon felt the pack bond strengthen. Robb embraced Jon. You did it. You actually did it. 90 men lost, but you brought them home. I had to, Jon said. Their pack. They are. Robb agreed. He pulled back, looked Jon in the eyes. How's Rickon? Still not speaking, Jon said quietly. Bran says he hasn't said a word since we got him out. The maesters think it's trauma. That whatever Ramsay did broke something inside him. They don't know if he'll ever fully recover. Robb's face darkened. Ramsay Snow. We need to deal with him. He's at Winterfell with 600 men, Jon said. We can't assault directly. The castle's too strong. We'd lose thousands trying to take it. Then we starve him out, Robb said. Siege Winterfell. Cut off supplies, make him surrender, or die. That could take months, Jon said. And we don't have months. The war with the Lannisters is still happening. Tywin's regrouping. The Tyrells are making their decision. We can't afford to be trapped in the north dealing with Bolton while the south burns. Then what do you suggest? Robb asked. Jon was silent for a moment, then said, We make Ramsay an offer. We trade Roose for Winterfell. His father for the castle. He gets to keep his life and his father's life if he surrenders peacefully. You think he'll accept? Robb asked skeptically. No, Jon admitted. But offering gives us the moral high ground, makes us look reasonable. And when he refuses, as he will, we have justification to deal with him however we want. Robb considered this. It's ruthless, calculated, very un-Stark. I learned it from Roose, Jon said. Use your enemy's tactics against them. Rose would sacrifice his son for advantage. We offered to do the opposite, save the son to regain the castle. When Ramsay refuses because he's too vicious to accept reasonable terms, we destroy him without guilt. I like it, Robb said. We send the offer tomorrow. And when Ramsay refuses, we plan the assault. They walked to the castle where Bran and Rickon waited. Bran smiled when he saw Robb, tears streaming down his face. Brother, you came. Of course I came, Robb said, embracing him carefully. You're my brother. I'd cross the world for you. He turned to Rickon, knelt before the 4-year-old boy. Rickon, it's me. Robb, do you remember me? Rickon stared with those empty eyes, said nothing. He will, Bran said quietly. The Maesters say he will. It just takes time. Whatever Ramsay did to him, Robb, it was bad. Really bad. But Jon saved us. Jon and Ghost. They came when we'd given up hope. Robb looked at Jon. Thank you. For everything. I know what you risked. What you sacrificed. I won't forget it. Your pack, Jon said simply. This is what pack does. They spent the evening making plans. Robb had brought news from the south. Tywin was withdrawing from Harrenhal back to the Westerlands. The Battle of the Valley had cost him too much. He couldn't hold the Riverlands anymore. Stannis was preparing to march on King's Landing again, this time with northern support. The combined armies might actually take the city if they moved fast. But first, the north needed to be secured. Winterfell needed to be retaken. The Bolton threat needed to be eliminated. We do it systematically, Robb said. We send the offer to Ramsay tomorrow. When he refuses, we gather our forces. Every loyal house in the north. We surround Winterfell with 20,000 men. And we don't leave until Ramsay Snow's head is on a spike. What about the Ironborn? Jon asked. They still hold Moat Cailin and Deepwood Motte. We can't ignore them forever. We deal with Bolton first, Robb said. Then the Ironborn. One problem at a time. The plan was solid. Methodical. It would work. But Jon couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, that they were missing something. That Ramsay Snow, for all his madness, was cunning enough to have a plan they hadn't anticipated. He thought of Melisandre's warning, the fire she'd seen, Winterfell burning. Is that past or future? Jon wondered. Did Ramsay already burn Winterfell, or is he planning to burn it if we attack? He didn't know, couldn't know, could only prepare for the worst and hope for the best. That night, Jon stood on White Harbor's walls with Ghost beside him, looking north toward Winterfell, toward home, toward the castle that held so many memories, good and bad, joyful and painful. We're coming, Jon thought. Ramsay, enjoy your stolen castle while you can. Because we're coming. And when we arrive, you'll learn what it means to hurt Pack. You'll learn what happens when you make Starks angry. You'll learn that the North remembers, and the North never forgives. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and let us know what you'd like to see next. The end.